The ocean is full of mysteries and seems to have no end in sight. Under the waves are hidden, strange stories and creatures difficult to explain. Real stories that will make you wonder how much we really know about the marine depths. There are underwater ruins with such perfect shapes that seem unnatural. Ships that have disappeared without a trace. And there is a huge, dark hole in the ocean that remains practically unexplored. These are not fairy tales or invented stories. They are real facts that nobody has solved yet. Join us to dive into some of the most puzzling mysteries of the deep sea. In the depths of the vast South China Sea lies a place known as the Dragon Hole, the deepest blue hole on Earth. It goes more than 300 meters into the unknown. Imagine yourself in the middle of the infinite South China Sea, where the water stretches far and wide, shimmering with turquoise tones under the bright sun. At first, everything seems calm and almost serene. But beneath this calm surface lies one of the most mysterious and dangerous places on Earth. The Dragon Hole, also known locally as the Eye of the South China Sea, is an immense underwater sinkhole that has been shrouded in mystery for centuries. The South China Sea is a region full of breathtaking beauty and legends. It is home to distant islands, dangerous reefs, and strange underwater formations that seem almost otherworldly. Among them, the Dragon Hole stands out, not only for its incredible size, but also for the countless myths and stories that have arisen around it. Locals have long whispered that this dark abyss is home to dragons and spirits, a place where the normal rules of nature seem not to apply. That's where tools like Filmora have become surprisingly useful in my process. For some parts of this documentary, I have been using Filmora's audio-to-video function. It allows me to take a simple voice recording, such as a segment of this narration, and instantly turn it into a video with images, subtitles, and even a talking avatar. If I want to customize the delivery, the process is fast, and most of it is automated by AI. You can upload audio from your computer or even directly from YouTube. Then you choose the style, aspect ratio, and duration. Filmora's AI selects the most outstanding moments of the audio and creates a visual sequence around them. If you are creating lessons, brief explanations, or summaries, this saves you a lot of time, and the result is still professional. You can also make manual edits later using Filmora's full editing timeline. I have found it especially useful for previewing how my voiceover segments would look with visual context before committing to rendering them completely. If you work with educational content or just want an easier way to turn your ideas into videos, Filmora is a great option. Thousands of creators are already using it to speed up their workflow. Don't be left behind. Click on the link in the description and start creating effortlessly with Filmora today. Sailors feared its strength, and fishermen warned each other to stay away. However, the Dragon Hole is real. It is not just folklore, but an authentic geological wonder, an almost bottomless pit that goes deep into the Earth's crust. The entrance to this hole is deceptively beautiful, a perfect circle of intense blue that contrasts sharply with the bright turquoise water surrounding it. But if you get too close, the calm quickly fades, as the currents around the hole are unpredictable and powerful enough to drag even experienced sailors into its depths. For centuries, no one dared to explore it. It was a dark and unexplored void, an enigma that seemed to swallow both curiosity and courage. Then, in 2016, a group of Chinese researchers decided to face this ancient mystery. What they discovered surprised and puzzled scientists, leaving even more questions than answers about this extraordinary place. In 2016, the Dragon Hole finally attracted the attention of scientists eager to uncover its secrets. The discovery came thanks to satellite images that revealed a huge circular formation in the sea. A research team equipped with advanced sonar, diving equipment, and remotely operated vehicles set out to investigate. However, exploring a place like this was not easy. The South China Sea is far from civilization and often dangerous, and the location of the Dragon Hole, near the disputed Paracel Islands, further complicated the mission. The first challenge was simply getting to the location. The research ship anchored at a safe distance, and the team began to install the equipment to measure the depth and size of the hole. What they discovered was incredible, with almost 987 feet deep. The Dragon Hole was officially the deepest blue hole ever discovered, even surpassing the famous Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas. The hole's entrance was equally impressive, with a diameter of more than 430 feet. It was as if nature had carved a perfect trapdoor in the ocean floor. But the real mystery was beneath the surface. The team sent a remotely operated vehicle into the depths, and the images it captured were disturbing and fascinating, leaving the scientists even more intrigued about the secrets that the Dragon Hole might hide. The descent began in clear, sunny waters, where schools of fish swam around the entrance, seemingly oblivious to the vast abyss that extended beneath them. But as the ROV descended past 300 feet, the light began to fade. When it reached 500 feet, the water became completely black, and the temperature dropped sharply. This was the point where life, as we know it, ceased to exist. The researchers made a surprising discovery, a distinctive line known as halocline, which marked a sharp border between the oxygen-rich waters of the surface and the lifeless depths. This border acted as a barrier, preventing oxygen from circulating to the lower layers. As a result, the area beyond this point was completely devoid of oxygen, an environment so hostile that survival was almost impossible for most life forms. It was like an alien world where survival seemed utterly impossible. Despite these challenges, the team continued forward. The lights of the ROV revealed irregular walls covered in layers of sediments that showed signs of the ancient origins of the sinkhole. Unlike other blue holes, which have smooth, sloping bottoms, the floor of the Dragon Hole was irregular and fractured, suggesting the presence of hidden caves or tunnels. These characteristics immediately raise questions. Were these natural formations, or could they have been shaped by geological events, or even ancient civilizations? On the surface, the researchers documented a great variety of colorful marine life, including vibrant corals and unique species of fish that thrived in the oxygen-rich upper layers. But as the ROV descended, the images began to take on a disturbing tone. The deeper it went, the more barren and lifeless the environment became. When it reached the bottom, an unsettling silence had settled, broken only by the hum of the ROV's machinery. The Dragon Hole was more than just a sinkhole. It was a vertical time capsule, a place that had probably remained intact for thousands, if not millions, of years. Its unique structure and conditions made it a treasure trove for scientists. The team collected samples of water and sediments, hoping to analyze them for clues about the history of the hole and its role in the ecosystem of the South China Sea. However, despite all its discoveries, the Dragon Hole remained shrouded in mystery. Its great depth and inaccessibility meant that many questions remained unanswered. Could there be unknown life forms hidden in its darkest depths? Were there ancient artifacts or geological secrets buried beneath the sediments? The team left with more questions than answers, and the Dragon Hole continued to guard its secrets, a silent giant in the heart of the sea. The Dragon Hole is more than just a marvel of geology. It is a place that fuels curiosity and speculation. Its enormous size and mysterious nature have inspired theories ranging from the scientific to the supernatural, each contributing to its allure. One of the most discussed scientific theories is that the Dragon Hole could serve as a natural archive, preserving important information about Earth's history. Blue holes like the Dragon Hole are often created during periods of glaciation, when the sea level was much lower. Over time, as the water level rose, these deep vertical sinkholes flooded, trapping layers of sediments and microorganisms along their walls. By studying these layers, scientists can unlock secrets about ancient climates, changes in the ocean, and even mass extinction events. In other words, the Dragon Hole could serve as a record of Earth's past, written in the language of stone and sediments. But there is even more to it. The unique boundary between the oxygen-rich and oxygen-deprived water layers within the Dragon Hole creates an environment rarely found on Earth. Researchers believe that these conditions could resemble those of ancient oceans billions of years ago, when life was just beginning to form on Earth. Could the dragon hole contain microorganisms or chemical compounds that reveal clues about the origins of life? It is an exciting possibility that could change our understanding of the planet's history. There are also geological mysteries to consider. The irregular floor of the dragon hole, with its fractured features and hidden cracks, has led some to wonder if it could be connected to a larger underground network. Are there tunnels or caverns that branch off from this sinkhole and delve into Earth's crust? If so, what could these spaces contain? Ancient fossils, rare minerals, or perhaps even evidence of seismic activity that could shed light on the region's geological history? Of course, not all the theories are strictly scientific. The dragon hole has gained legendary status among local fishermen, which has given rise to countless myths and stories. Some believe that it is a portal to another world, a door where physical and spiritual realms meet. Others claim that it is cursed, a place where ships and even people disappear without trace. Although these stories may seem implausible, they reflect a deep respect and fear of the unknown. A particularly intriguing idea is that the dragon hole could have been important for ancient sailors. The South China Sea has been an important trade route for centuries, and some wonder if this hole was marked on ancient maps as a landmark or even a warning. Could it have been a sacred place, a site of ritual for those who sailed these dangerous waters? Or could it be related to the lost city of Lemuria, a mythical counterpart to Atlantis? Although there is no concrete evidence to support these ideas, they add another layer of mystery to this enigmatic place. Then there is the question of whether the dragon hole has taken lives. Local legends tell of fishermen who disappeared after getting too close to the hole, their boats swallowed by its powerful currents. Although there is no definitive evidence for these stories, the dangers of the South China Sea are well known. Sudden storms, unpredictable tides, and even the area's magnetic attraction can quickly turn a simple fishing trip into a deadly encounter. Whether reality or fiction, these stories have only contributed to the hole's unsettling reputation. Despite all the theories and stories, the dragon hole remains a true mystery. For every question that scientists answer, new ones seem to arise, reminding us how little we know about oceans. The dragon hole is not just a place. It is a symbol of the vast, unexplored world that lies beneath the waves. At almost 1,000 feet deep, it is a testament to the power and mystery of nature. This vertical frontier challenges our understanding of Earth. Today, the dragon hole remains largely unexplored. The logistical and technological challenges of studying such a remote and extreme environment mean that much of its history is unknown. Even the deepest dives and the most advanced equipment have barely scratched the surface of what lies beneath. What could be waiting in the unexplored depths of the bottom? Could there be unknown life forms that have adapted to the harsh conditions of the anoxic depths? Or perhaps there are geological phenomena that we have never seen before. The possibilities are endless. Some scientists believe that blue holes like the dragon hole could be part of a vast hidden network of underwater sinkholes, all connected by secret tunnels. If this theory is true, it could change how we understand many things from marine life to the way water and nutrients move through the ocean. It could even offer new insights into the underwater exploration. But the dragon hole is not only important for what we can learn. It is also important for how it makes us feel. Being on the edge of such a deep and dark hole, it is impossible not to feel overwhelmed by awe and humility. It is a place where human knowledge reaches its limit, where even the most sophisticated technology struggles to uncover the secrets hidden in shadows. For the people who live nearby, the dragon hole is more than just a place of scientific interest. It is something they deeply respect and even fear. This natural wonder has been a source of awe for generations. For them, it is not just a hole in the ocean's bottom. It is a living symbol of the unknown. It reminds them that some mysteries are destined to remain unsolved. As scientists continue to explore the dragon hole, one thing is certain. Its mystery will never lose its power to captivate us. Whether it's a geological time capsule, a gateway to another world, or simply one of nature's most impressive wonders, the Dragon Hole reminds us how much we still have to learn. In a world where so much has already been mapped and measured, it is a place that still refuses explanation. And so, the Dragon Hole remains still and silent, guarding its secrets in the deepest depths. It challenges us to continue asking questions, to continue exploring, and to remember that no matter how much we think we know, there's always more for discovery. Between the sunny coasts of Miami, the mysterious island of Bermuda, and the tropical land of Puerto Rico, lies a huge strip of ocean that, at first glance, seems completely normal. But for many years, this area has aroused curiosity, fear, and countless crazy theories. This strange region is known as the Bermuda Triangle, although some people also call it the Devil's Triangle. It covers a large part of the Atlantic Ocean, with a size of about 500,000 square kilometers. It covers a large part of the Atlantic Ocean, with a size of about 500,000 square kilometers. It is an area so large that several countries could easily fit within it. But what makes the Bermuda Triangle famous is not its size or location. It is what seems to occur there. For decades, ships, planes, and the people on board have vanished without a trace. There are no distress calls, no floating debris, and no bodies have been found. It is as if these ships and their crews had vanished into thin air. The silence that follows is unsettling and deeply disturbing. The story of the Bermuda Triangle, as we know it, began to take shape in the 1950s, but strange events in these waters go back much further. One of the first known disappearances occurred in 1800. A United States Navy ship called USS Pickering, with 90 men on board, was sailing from the Caribbean to Delaware. Then it disappeared. Despite intense search efforts, not a single piece of the ship was ever found. The fate of the 90 sailors on board remains a mystery to this day. However, the event that really put the Bermuda Triangle in the spotlight occurred in December of 1945. This is the disappearance of a group of planes known as Flight 19. That day began like any other. 5 TBM Avenger torpedo bombers of the Navy took off from Fort Lauderdale, in Florida, to carry out a routine training flight over the Atlantic Ocean. The lead pilot was Lieutenant Charles Taylor, an experienced pilot. The other 14 men were mostly still training. Everything seemed normal until the pilots began reporting strange issues. Lieutenant Taylor contacted the control tower, showing his confusion. He said that his compasses had stopped working and that nothing looked familiar. "We don't know where the west is. Everything is wrong," he stated. Not even the ocean below looked as it should. These were some of the last clear messages received from Flight 19. As the hours passed, the pilot's radio transmissions became more confusing and harder to understand. Taylor believed they were flying over the Florida Keys, but in reality, they were probably much further east, lost over the open Atlantic. The control tower tried everything to bring them back safely, but one after another, all 5 planes disappeared. 14 men had disappeared, and the nightmare did not end there. A large rescue plane, a Martin Mariner flying boat, was sent to search for them. But shortly after taking off, it also disappeared along with its 13 crew members. That meant that 27 men had disappeared in a single day without any remains being found. In the following years, more ships and planes were lost in the Bermuda Triangle. In February 1963, the SS Marines Sulphur Queen, a tanker carrying molten sulfur, disappeared with 39 people aboard. Not even an oil slick remained. Then, in 1967, a yacht called Witchcraft disappeared just a mile off the coast of Miami. It carried life jackets, flares, and emergency gear. A Coast Guard ship arrived at the scene just 19 minutes after the distress call, but no trace of the yacht or its passengers was ever found. Stories like these, along with many others, have kept the legend of the Bermuda Triangle alive. Many people have tried to explain what happens in this strange stretch of sea. Some believe in science. Others believe in the supernatural. Some theories are reasonable, while others seem straight out of a science fiction movie. A very popular natural explanation involves methane hydrates. These are frozen gases trapped beneath the ocean floor. If a large bubble of methane is suddenly released, it could make the water above less dense, causing a ship to sink without warning. The ship could sink so fast that nobody would have time to send any signal. And if the methane rises in the air, it could cause aircraft engines to fail or even explode. Although this theory is interesting, scientists have not yet found solid evidence that it actually caused any disappearances. Others say that the answer could be much simpler. The Gulf Stream, a powerful ocean current, flows through the Bermuda Triangle. It moves fast enough to drag debris, oil slicks, and even entire ships, making it difficult to search for clues. The Puerto Rico Trench is one of the deepest places in the ocean, and it is so vast and deep that it could easily swallow the remains of shipwrecks forever. This area is also known for its violent climate. Strong storms and hurricanes often occur, making it a dangerous place for pilots and sailors. The sky can turn wild instantly, and the sea can turn into a furious monster without warning. A strange meteorological phenomenon that occurs here is the waterspout, a rotating column of wind similar to a tornado that forms over the ocean. These waterspouts can be so strong that they destroy small boats and even damage larger ships. In addition, human error must also be taken into account. The Bermuda Triangle is full of hidden dangers, such as rocky coasts and underwater reefs, which have caused many shipwrecks throughout history. For planes flying through the region, the challenges are different, but just as serious. Some pilots have reported that their compasses start to work strangely, possibly due to the area's magnetic forces. Sudden storms can form out of nowhere, and with no land in sight, pilots can become visually confused, especially when all they see below is the same, just an infinite ocean. However, even with all these natural and human factors, it does not fully explain why so many ships and planes disappear without leaving a remnant. Many times there are no distress calls, no signs of problems, just silence. And before disappearing, some pilots and ship captains have reported strange problems with their electronic devices. Radios stop working, navigation instruments go haywire, and then nothing. Due to these strange clues, people have developed some fascinating and far-fetched theories. Some scientists and researchers think that the Bermuda Triangle could have strange cracks in space and time, temporary wormholes or portals that could suck ships and planes to other places or even other dimensions. Some pilots say that their instruments went crazy, that the sea looked strange, or that the sky changed color before losing contact. Another idea is that the area has powerful electromagnetic forces. Interestingly, this region is one of the few places on Earth where magnetic north and true north coincide. This could interfere with a ship's compass or an airplane's navigation system, causing them to become disoriented. Then there are even more mysterious theories. Some believe that there could be aliens involved. They suggest that the Bermuda Triangle is home to an underwater alien base or a portal used to collect human technology and even humans. They point to stories of strange lights seen in the sky or strange flying objects sighted just before a plane disappeared. An even more far-fetched idea connects the triangle with the lost city of Atlantis. According to this theory, the ancient Atlanteans had advanced technology that still works today. Although the civilization disappeared thousands of years ago, some claim that huge crystal pyramids have been seen on the ocean floor in the area, believed to be part of a powerful energy system that could affect ships and planes passing through there. What makes all this even more disturbing is that many of these disappearances occur in calm weather conditions, with experienced crews and on ships in good condition. There are no signs of struggle, no emergency signals, just a sudden disappearance, as if something had hit too fast or somehow prevented a warning from being sent. But despite all the legends and strange stories, official organizations remain skeptical. The United States Coast Guard and major insurance companies do not consider the Bermuda Triangle particularly dangerous. Experts who study the figures say that, considering the number of ships and planes that pass through the region, the number of accidents is not really higher than in any other busy area of the ocean. In fact, Lloyd's of London, one of the oldest and most reliable maritime insurers, does not charge higher fees to ships crossing the Bermuda Triangle. For them, the area is no more dangerous than any other. For this reason, many skeptics argue that the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle has more to do with fascinating stories and human imagination than with real danger. Over the years, many pilots and ship captains have shared strange and mysterious stories about their experiences while sailing through the area known as the Bermuda Triangle. Some say that their compasses started spinning uncontrollably, preventing them from knowing what direction they were going. Others report that all their electronic equipment stopped working simultaneously. There are even stories about thick, mysterious fogs that appear out of nowhere and envelop everything in a ghostly haze. But perhaps the most disconcerting of all are the stories in which time seems to act strangely, in which trips that should have lasted hours ended up in a matter of minutes, or in which trips were much longer than they should have been according to the usual speed and distance. One of the best-known accounts is that of a man named Bruce Jernon. In 1970, he was flying in his small plane over the Bermuda Triangle when something very unusual happened. According to Bruce, he and his father were flying on a clear day when they entered a strange, tunnel-shaped cloud. Inside that tunnel, the world seemed to change. He said that he felt as if the usual rules of time and space no longer applied. Everything around him turned gray and blurry, and his instruments began to fail. When they finally left the cloud, Bruce was shocked. He realized that he had traveled the distance of a 30-minute flight in just minutes and was nowhere near where he was supposed to be. The plane had advanced much more than expected, as if an invisible force had dragged it through space. Sailors have told similar stories. Some say that sudden storms have appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as quickly as if part of a dream. Others claim to have seen strange lights floating over the ocean that disappeared without a trace. These accounts may seem taken from a science fiction story, and some people think they are just the result of confusion or error. But what makes them interesting is how often the same details appear in stories told by people who have never met and had no way to share their experiences. The United States Navy officially claims that the Bermuda Triangle is no more dangerous than any other part of the ocean. According to them, the risks in the area are the usual ones when sailing on the open sea. However, some documents that have been made public show that the Navy has studied strange magnetic activity in the region. There are also records of Navy ships that have experienced mysterious problems with their instruments when passing through these waters. The most reasonable way to think about the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle might be to accept that many different things may happen at once. The unique shape of the area, its unpredictable climate, the possibility of equipment failure, human errors, and perhaps even natural forces that we have not yet discovered. All of this could combine into the perfect recipe for strange and inexplicable events. What we do know for sure is that the Bermuda Triangle has captivated people's imagination for years. It remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the modern era. Even now, in an era when satellites monitor the entire planet and GPS can locate almost any place with meter precision, the Triangle reminds us that there are still places in the world where our machines can fail and people can disappear without a trace. Someday, science could discover the truth about what really happens in the Bermuda Triangle. It could turn out to be nothing more than a mixture of natural hazards and human errors, misinterpreted and exaggerated over the years. Or perhaps we will discover that there is something truly unusual in those waters, something that we still do not understand. Until that day comes, the Bermuda Triangle will remain a chilling reminder. It shows us that, even with all our modern technology, there are still parts of the earth where mystery reigns and where the power of the sea and sky can still make us feel humble. Imagine a city full of energy, with bustling streets full of merchants, imposing temples rising to the sky, and ships sailing smoothly through a network of canals. Then, one day, it disappears, swallowed by the sea, and lost to time for more than 1,000 years. This is the story of Heraclea, an ancient city located off the coast of Egypt. For centuries, its existence was debated. Was it real, or just a story passed down from generation to generation? But in 2000, archaeologists made an amazing discovery. The city of Heraclea was not only real, but had remained under the Mediterranean Sea all this time. How did it end up there? What secrets does it hide? And what can we learn from its history about the delicate balance between civilization and nature? The story of Heraclea begins as a whisper in the ancient records of history. For centuries, it was more a myth than a real place mentioned by Greek historians such as Herodotus. They described a prosperous city at the mouth of the Nile, a bustling center of commerce and culture, known by two names, Thonis for the Egyptians and Heraclean for the Greeks. It was said that this city was of great importance. According to these accounts, Heraclea was a gateway to Egypt where Mediterranean merchants docked their ships, paid tribute to the gods, and prepared for their journey to the great kingdom beyond. Heraclea was not just any city. It was a place of incredible wealth and power, full of grandiose temples, lively markets, and bustling ports. One of the most famous monuments was a huge temple dedicated to Garb, a god revered by both Egyptians and Greeks. Herodotus claimed that this temple was the heart of the city, where priests performed sacred rituals and citizens gathered to honor their gods. But even in its heyday, Heraclea was shrouded in mystery. Ancient texts spoke of a city built on unstable ground, where the earth itself seemed to tremble under the weight of its magnificent buildings. Some mentioned floods that threatened to engulf the city. Others described earthquakes that shook the Nile Delta and sent shock waves to the temples and homes of the city. These stories of instability seemed a warning of a tragic end. By the Middle Ages, Heraclea had disappeared. Its name vanished from maps, and its streets were forgotten. For centuries, scholars debated whether it had really existed. Some believed it was a myth, a tale invented by ancient storytellers. Others argued that it had been destroyed by natural disasters or buried under layers of sediment carried by the Nile. Then there was the sea. Over the years, the Mediterranean had slowly advanced inland, swallowing much Egyptian coast. If Heraclea had existed, some believed it might now be hidden under the waves, a lost city drowned by the ocean. However, without clear evidence, the story of Heraclea remained a mystery, locked in the past until the 21st century. In the year 2000, a French underwater archaeologist named Frank Godot embarked on a bold mission to discover the hidden mysteries of the ancient coast of Egypt. Armed with state-of-the-art sonar and magnetic imaging technology, Godot and his team set out to map the seabed near the city of Alexandria. Their mission was ambitious, to discover something that might not even exist. However, their discovery would change history forever. At 9 meters deep, under silt and sand, lay the ruins of Heraclea. It was real, and its discovery was more incredible than anyone imagined. Imagine descending into the depths of the Mediterranean. As you descend, sunlight fades, and the water grows colder and darker. Visibility is reduced, and the seabed is hidden under thick mud and debris. Then, just when it seems that all hope has been lost, you see something. A glimpse of ancient ruins, or once great structures now lie on the ocean floor, waiting to be rediscovered. For Frank Godot and his team, discovering Heraclea was like entering a time machine. As they carefully excavated the site, the image of this long-lost city slowly took shape. The first objects discovered were giant statues. Despite being submerged for centuries, many of these statues still stood with amazing detail. Some towered more than 5 meters high, their stone faces silently facing the dark waters. These statues, carved in granite, had once adorned the city's temples and public spaces. Now they lay scattered on the seabed, knocked down by the force that destroyed the city. The team also discovered evidence of Heraclea's extensive canal system. Unlike most ancient cities, Heraclea was not built on solid ground, but on a series of islands connected by canals, much like the city of Venice. These canals allowed ships to navigate the city and bring goods from all over the Mediterranean and beyond. The stone anchors, fragments of ships, and mooring rings found at the site pointed to the city's important role as a bustling port, a place where trade and travel converged. One of the most remarkable discoveries was the remains of the Temple of Ammonius-Gerig, the city's spiritual center. This temple had been a sacred place for both Egyptians and Greeks, where pilgrims came to honor the gods before embarking on their journeys. Archaeologists discovered imposing columns, intricate carvings, and ceremonial artifacts, including amulets and gold offerings. The scale and craftsmanship of the temple were astonishing, highlighting Heracleia's wealth and religious importance. But Heracleion was not just a religious center. It was also a thriving commercial center. Among the ruins, the team found coins, weights, and shipping records, evidence of the city's bustling economy. These artifacts reveal that Heracleia had been a commercial crossroads where goods like gold, spices, and textiles flowed between Egypt and the Mediterranean world. The city's markets must have been lively, full of merchants and goods from distant lands. Perhaps most shocking were the remains of everyday life. Archaeologists discovered household objects such as pottery, tools, and even food containers preserved in the sediments that buried the city. These objects provided a glimpse into the lives of the people who once called Heracleia home. Fishermen, merchants, and families who lived in this vibrant, bustling city. As the archaeologists continued their work, they discovered more clues about the city's fall. The ruins showed signs of subsidence, meaning the ground under the city had gradually sunk. In combination with rising sea levels and coastal displacement, this process may have caused the city to slowly sink into the sea. Some tests suggested that a catastrophic event, like an earthquake or tsunami, could have dealt the final blow that caused Heracleia to disappear under the waves. However, despite all the answers that the ruins provided, many questions still remained unanswered. What exactly caused the sinking of this city? How did its people react when the waters began rising around them? And what other secrets still lie beneath the seabed, waiting to be discovered? The rediscovery of Heracleia was not just an archaeological triumph. It was a window into the past, a powerful reminder of how civilizations can rise and fall at the mercy of nature's forces. As Frank Goddio and his team reconstructed the history of this lost city, they revealed not only its greatness, but also its vulnerability, a confirmation of the fragile balance between human ambition and the relentless power of the natural world. The rediscovery of Heracleia offered an amazing vision of its existence and unleashed widespread speculation about how such a key city could disappear under the waves. Although the archaeological evidence provides some clues, the precise events leading to the fall of Heracleia remain a mystery. One of the most accepted explanations for the fall of Heracleia is that it sank into the soft, waterlogged ground of the Nile Delta, where the city was built. The delta is formed by unstable sediments, which are not the best base for supporting heavy stone buildings. Over time, the weight of the city's structures, along with the natural settling of the ground, may have caused the land to sink slowly. Archaeologists have found clear indications of this sinking at the site, such as inclined foundations and collapsed walls. At first, this gradual sinking would have been almost impossible to detect, but as decades passed, it caused more and more of the city to disappear under the water. Another factor that contributed to the city's decline was the rise of the Mediterranean sea level. Between the height of Heracleia and its eventual fall, the sea level in that region rose considerably. This slow but unstoppable rise of the water would have flooded the low-lying areas of the city and eroded its infrastructure, leaving it more vulnerable to disasters. However, some researchers believe that Heracleia did not simply disappear due to land sinking and the rise in sea level. They think that the city may have been hit by a catastrophic event, such as an earthquake or tsunami. The Eastern Mediterranean is known for its seismic activity, and ancient records mention powerful earthquakes that shook the region. A major earthquake could have further weakened the already unstable ground under Heracleia, causing buildings to collapse and parts of the city to sink. Tsunamis are another possibility. An underwater earthquake could have displaced enough water to create giant waves that flooded the city and swept away its structures. Similar tsunami deposits have been found in other areas of the Mediterranean. Therefore, it is possible that Heraclea was one of the cities affected by such a disaster. Beyond natural causes, there are other, more unusual theories. Heraclea was an important religious and cultural center, leading some to suggest that its destruction may have had a spiritual or divine cause. Ancient inscriptions discovered at the site mention rituals and offerings performed to appease the gods, possibly to avoid disasters. Could the destruction of a city be considered divine punishment? Could the destruction of a city be considered divine punishment? Although there is no direct evidence to support this theory, it certainly adds a fascinating element to the story. Another mystery surrounding Heraclea is why it disappeared from history after sinking. For more than 1,000 years, the city was forgotten and its memory faded. Was it simply because it was no longer accessible, or could there have been an intentional effort to erase it from historical records? Some scholars believe that this coincided with changes in political or religious power that caused other cities, such as Alexandria, to eclipse its history. The fact that it took over 1,000 years to rediscover the city raises important questions about how easily history can be lost and how much of it could still be buried under the sea. Perhaps the most intriguing mystery is what we still don't know about Heraclea. The underwater ruins cover an area of more than 40 square miles, and much of the area remains unexplored. What secrets could still be hidden in the mud and silt? Could there be artifacts, inscriptions, or even entire sections of the city yet to be discovered? The possibilities are endless, and each new discovery could change everything we know about this ancient metropolis. The rediscovery of Heraclea was not just an archaeological achievement. It was a moment that brought the past back to life. For more than 1,000 years, the city had remained buried under layers of sediment and water, reduced to little more than a legend. But thanks to Frank Goddio and his team, Heraclea has resurfaced, offering us a glimpse into a lost world. The ruins are a confirmation of the skill and resilience of the people who built them. Despite having been submerged for centuries, many of the structures and objects of Heraclean are surprisingly well preserved. The huge statues of gods and pharaohs carved in granite still show the fine details of their original designs. The inscriptions on stone tablets and stele allow us to glimpse the religious practices of the city and how it was governed. The gold amulets and ceremonial objects reveal the city's wealth and its importance in the culture of that time. However, discovering Heraclean is not only about finding ancient artifacts. It is about the stories that they reveal. The layout of the city, with its canals, ports, and temples, shows a society deeply connected with both the natural and spiritual world. The discovery of shipping records and commercial weights highlights the crucial role of Heraclean as a link between Egypt and the Mediterranean, a place where different cultures met and goods circulated freely. Each artifact, from the grandest statue to the smallest piece of ceramics, offers a glimpse into the life of the people who once lived there. The rediscovery of Heraclean has also drawn new attention to underwater archaeology. The techniques used to locate and excavate the city, such as sonar mapping, magnetic imaging, and careful underwater excavation, have set new standards for the exploration of submerged sites. Today, Heraclean is considered one of the most important underwater discoveries of the 21st century, inspiring efforts to find other lost cities and civilizations. But the story of Heraclean is not just a thing of the past. It is also a reminder of how fragile human civilizations can be. The same forces that caused the sinking of the city, the rise in sea level, the instability of the terrain, and natural disasters, continue to affect us today. As we face the challenges of climate change and environmental instability, the rise and fall of Heraclean serve as a warning about the delicate balance between human ambition and the power of nature. Today, the ruins of Heraclean remain underwater, carefully protected as an archaeological site. Divers continue to explore its depths, discovering new pieces of its history each year. For those who visit the site or see its artifacts in museums, Heraclean is more than just a lost city. It is a symbol of discovery, resilience, and the enduring mystery of human history. When leaving the waters of Heracleon, a question lingers in the air. What other lost worlds lie under the sea, waiting to be discovered? The story of Heracleon reminds us that history is always alive, buried in the depths of the earth and the oceans, waiting for someone to bring it to light. Hidden under the calm blue waters lies the ancient city of Bioluminescent, a place lost in time, but not in legend. Unlike the mythical island of Atlantis, which people have searched for but never found, Bioluminescent is very real and truly special. This submerged city is even older than the pyramids in Egypt. In fact, it is the oldest underwater city that has been discovered so far. Even after more than 5,000 years, much of it still stands. Streets, buildings, open courtyards, all perfectly preserved. It offers us a unique and surprising opportunity to enter a world that once prospered. At the southern end of Greece, where the rugged coast meets the wide, crystal-clear waters of the Mediterranean Sea, there is a place called the Peloponnese Peninsula. This land has always been full of stories, legends of gods and heroes, great wars, and ancient ruins. For thousands of years, it has been a place where history and legend mingle. But not all of its stories are on solid ground. Under the surface of the Gulf of Laconia, hidden under the sea for thousands of years, lies one of the most surprising archaeological finds of modern times, the ancient city of Bioluminescent. For generations, local fishermen have told stories about strange shapes they sometimes saw under the crystal-clear water. Some said they had seen stone walls or shadows that looked like buildings. But in Greece, a land full of ruins, this did not seem unusual. People did not pay much attention. After all, ruins were everywhere. Who would have thought that those shadows were actually the remains of a city even older than classical Greece? A city that existed before the Great Pyramids were built. Everything changed in 1967. That year, a British oceanographer named Nicholas Fleming was conducting an underwater investigation near a small beach called Bioluminescent. At that time, the science of underwater archaeology was in its early stages. Divers had basic equipment and lacked advanced technology such as sonar or three-dimensional mapping. Fleming was not actually looking for a lost city. He was simply studying the seabed. But while diving in the shallow waters near the beach, he saw something strange. Just a few meters below the surface, he observed shapes that did not seem natural. They looked artificial, like walls, roads, and buildings. Fleming had accidentally discovered what looked like the skeleton of an ancient city swallowed by the sea long ago. It was an incredible discovery, but the true importance of what he had found did not become clear until the following year. In 1968, a team of archaeologists from the University of Cambridge arrived to study the site more closely. When beginning their work, they realized that it was more than just a few ruins. It was an entire city, carefully designed and surprisingly well preserved. What impacted them most was the antiquity of the site. At the beginning, they thought that it dated back to about 1,000 years before Christ, during the last stage of the Bronze Age. But as they excavated and learned more, they discovered something even more incredible. The city of Bioluminescent was much older. Their studies revealed that Bioluminescent had been built at least 3,000 years before our era. That meant that the city was more than 5,000 years old, making it the oldest underwater city in the world. What makes Bioluminescent even more extraordinary is how well it has been preserved. Unlike other ancient cities that have been worn down by time, looted, or destroyed by human activity, Bioluminescent has been protected by the sea. Its streets, buildings, and tombs remain practically intact, just as they were thousands of years ago. This offers us a unique and fascinating glimpse of a world lost long ago in history. Diving under the waters of Bioluminescent is like entering a time machine. Only 3 or 4 meters below the surface, the city unfolds before you with impressive clarity. Its layout remains as if people had just left, offering archaeologists and divers an otherworldly experience. Walking through streets that have not felt human footsteps in more than 5,000 years is simply amazing. The city itself is very well organized, which demonstrates the ingenuity of its builders. Its narrow and straight streets intersect at right angles, forming a grid pattern that modern urban planners would recognize. In the heart of Pavlopetri is a central plaza, a vast open space that may have once served as a market or meeting place. Around the plaza are groups of buildings, some small and simple, probably homes or workshops, while others are larger and more complex, possibly for public or administrative purposes. Archaeologists have discovered at least 15 structures, although they believe there are many more hidden under layers of sand and sediment. These buildings were not built randomly. They were carefully planned with knowledge of engineering and design. Thick walls, some several meters thick, define each structure. Inside there are remains of homes, storage spaces, and even drainage systems, demonstrating that this ancient society valued hygiene and resource management. The most fascinating discoveries are the burial sites scattered throughout the city. These tombs, filled with ceramics, tools, and other artifacts, allow us to glimpse the daily lives of the people who live there, their food, their trades, and even their artistic expressions. The ceramics are especially revealing, decorated with detailed motifs and symbols. They reveal a lot about the culture and beliefs of the people and give clues about their connections with other civilizations. Some designs suggest trade with distant lands, indicating that Pavlopetri was part of a larger commercial network during the Bronze Age. But Pavlopetri was not just a city of houses and markets. It was a bustling maritime center. The discovery of large stone anchors and slipways used to launch ships points to a society deeply connected to the sea. Its location, nestled in a protected bay with easy access to the Mediterranean Sea, made an ideal port for trade. Archaeologists believe that Pavlopetri played a crucial role in the exchange of goods, ideas, and culture during the Bronze Age, acting as a link between the civilizations of the Aegean, the Near East, and beyond. As research progresses, more evidence of this maritime activity is being discovered. The tools and artifacts found in the city suggest that its inhabitants were skilled sailors and naval builders, capable of navigating the unpredictable waters of the Mediterranean. The city's proximity to natural resources, such as wood for shipbuilding and fertile land for agriculture, would have made it a thriving center of trade and industry. However, despite its advanced design and prosperity, Pavlopetri was not immune to the forces of nature. The city's ideal location for trade also made it vulnerable to the element on which it depended, the sea. Over time, rising water levels and geological activity gradually engulfed the city, submerging it under the waves. Today, when walking through the submerged ruins of Pavlopetri, it is easy to imagine the vibrant life that once filled its streets. Children playing in the square, merchants touting their prices, and sailors preparing for long journeys. This was a city that lived and breathed, that thrived on the edge of the known world. However, like so many other ancient civilizations, it ended up being claimed by the forces of nature, leaving behind only whispers of its history. Pavlopetri is more than just a simple city. It is a time capsule, a snapshot of the Bronze Age, frozen under the sea. Its discovery has transformed our understanding of ancient history, offering a unique and invaluable glimpse of a world lost in the depths. But even as we discover more about Pavlopetri, many questions remain unanswered. Who are the people who built this city? What role did it play in the ancient world? And what secrets still remain buried under the sand and the water? The discovery of Pavlopetri has offered archaeologists an unprecedented opportunity to explore the Bronze Age. The streets, the buildings, and the artifacts of the city offer a vivid image of a prosperous and interconnected society. However, despite all that has been discovered, many questions about its final destiny remain unresolved. Why did a city so well built and advanced for its time disappear beneath the waves? The answers remain as elusive as the city itself, at the heart of the mystery surrounding Pavlopetri. One of the most accepted hypotheses about what happened to Pavlopetri is that it was destroyed by uncontrollable natural forces. The area around the Gulf of Laconia, where Pavlopetri was located, is known for geological instability. Earthquakes are frequent, and the proximity of the land to tectonic faults means that even small movements of the ground can have enormous consequences. A strong earthquake could have caused parts of the city to collapse, making the buildings unstable and forcing the population to abandon their homes. Over time, the land may have slowly sunk due to repeated earthquakes, leaving Petri exposed to rising sea levels. Another factor that likely influenced this was the rise in sea level during the Late Bronze Age. Evidence found on Earth shows that the Mediterranean Sea rose gradually during this period. But it was not a gradual process over many years. It was caused by a series of sudden floods, probably due to climate change. Petri, which was just above sea level, may have been especially vulnerable to this. The inhabitants may have tried to protect their city by building dikes or raising their houses, but these efforts would not have been enough to stop the unstoppable advance of the water. There is also the theory that it was a combination of earthquakes and floods that caused the fall of the city. Imagine a bustling port city full of activity, suddenly struck by a strong earthquake. Buildings collapse, the ground moves, and the coast begins sinking. Soon, the rising waters flood the city, leaving only ruins in their wake. Over time, sand and earth cover the remains, preserving them for thousands of years until they are rediscovered by modern archaeologists. But the mystery of how Petri was lost is only part of the story. The real question is why it disappeared. What was Petri's role in the ancient world, and what does its destiny teach us about the people who live there? Some archaeologists believe that Petri was an important part of the Minoan civilization, one of the oldest and most advanced cultures of the Bronze Age. The Minoans were known for their grand palaces, vibrant art, and extensive commercial networks. They were also pioneers in maritime travel. If Petri was indeed a Minoan settlement, its disappearance could be related to the fall of the Minoan civilization around 1000 BC. The Minoans faced numerous catastrophes, such as volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, and invasions by other groups, and Petri may have been abandoned when the Minoan world collapsed. Others believe that Petri was a smaller, more local settlement, part of a wider network of city-states along the Greek coast. If this is the case, its disappearance could be due to more common reasons, such as economic problems, lack of resources, or a change in trade routes. Perhaps the port became filled with sediments, making it difficult for ships to access, or perhaps the strategic importance of the city faded over time. What we know for sure is that the story of Petri is one of strength and vulnerability. It was a city designed to live in harmony with the sea, but in the end, it was swept away by the very waters that once sustained it. As researchers continue to explore the site, new discoveries could help us understand what happened to the city. But for now, Petri remains a fascinating mystery, an ancient city that defies our knowledge of the past. Today, Petri lies under the sea, a quiet reminder of the splendor and creativity of its builders. For centuries, it remained forgotten, hidden under the water, and untouched by human hands. But thanks to modern technology and the hard work of archaeologists, the city has come to light again, both literally and figuratively. One of the biggest advances in the study of Petri has been the use of 3D mapping and underwater images, which have allowed us to better understand the city and its secrets. In the early 2010s, a group of researchers joined the Greek Ministry of Culture to create a detailed digital model of the ancient city of Petri. Using advanced sonar technology and photogrammetry, they were able to map the site in a way never seen before, revealing hidden features that had remained buried for millennia. The images they obtained are impressive, showing the streets, buildings, and even the stone slabs with incredible clarity. This digital mapping effort has allowed archaeologists to study Petri without disturbing its delicate remains. Unlike traditional excavations, which often involve removing artifacts and structures, digital mapping preserves the site as it is. This means that future generations will be able to continue exploring and learning from it, keeping the site intact for many years. But Pavlo-Petri is more than just an archaeological site. It is also a cultural treasure. The local communities have welcomed the city as a symbol of their heritage and strive to protect and promote it. Efforts are currently being made for Pavlo-Petri to be recognized by UNESCO as a World Heritage Site, a prestigious title that would help ensure its conservation for the future. The rediscovery of Pavlo-Petri has also sparked renewed interest in underwater archaeology. Inspired by this ancient city, researchers have begun exploring other submerged sites around the world. From sunken ports in the Mediterranean to lost temples in Southeast Asia, Pavlo-Petri has become a shining example for those seeking to discover the secrets of the past, demonstrating that even forgotten places still hold incredible stories waiting to be told. However, despite its current importance, Pavlo-Petri remains enveloped in mystery. Who were the people who built it? Why did they choose such a vulnerable place for such an advanced city? What can we learn from their successes and from their mistakes? The story of Pavlo-Petri is far from over. As technology continues to advance, so will our understanding of this ancient city. For now, it stands as a reminder of the delicate relationship between humanity and nature, a relationship that has shaped our history and will continue to influence our future. When leaving Pavlo-Petri, it is important to reflect on its legacy. This was a city that flourished for thousands of years, a place where people lived, worked, and dreamed. Although its buildings have been lost at sea, its history remains an enduring tale of resilience, innovation, and the enduring power of human civilization. Let us now travel to the vast waters of the Pacific Ocean, where a completely different mystery unfolded. It is the story of the MV Gita, a ship that disappeared without a trace, only to reappear weeks later, abandoned and surrounded by unanswered questions. In October 1955, the MV Gita set sail from Samoa on what was supposed to be a simple, routine trip. The ship, which was once a luxurious private yacht, had been converted into a reliable cargo ship that traveled between the islands of the South Pacific, transporting passengers and goods. But when the Joyita did not reach its destination, a large search was launched. Weeks later, the ship was found more than 600 miles from its route, completely empty, without crew, without passengers, and without any explanation of its strange fate. What had happened aboard the MV Joyita? Why did its crew disappear? And why was the ship left adrift like a ghost? This is the disturbing mystery that still surrounds the Joyita. In the early 1950s, the South Pacific was a vast, isolated region made up of small islands connected by trade routes that stretched across thousands of miles of open ocean. For the inhabitants of these remote islands, the sea was more than just a means of survival. It was their highway, their livelihood, and, at times, their greatest danger. And in the middle of this vast blue ocean was the MV Gita, a ship with a rich and mysterious history. Originally built in 1931 as a luxurious private yacht for a Hollywood director, the Joyita, which means little jewel in Spanish, was once the epitome of elegance and glamour. But by the 1940s, its golden age had come to an end. During World War II, the ship was reused by the United States Navy and used as a military patrol boat. After the war, it was sold to private owners who converted it into a humble but reliable merchant ship. Although it no longer had the glamorous appeal of yesteryear, the Joyita earned a reputation for being a sturdy and seaworthy ship. In 1955, the Joyita belonged to Captain Thomas Dusty Miller, an experienced British sailor with decades of experience sailing the Pacific Ocean. Captain Miller was well known and respected, having acquired deep knowledge of the dangers and unpredictable nature of the ocean. If anyone could safely navigate those treacherous waters, it was he. On October 3, 1955, the Joyita set sail from the port of Apia, in Samoa, bound for the Tokelau Islands, about 270 kilometers to the north. The trip was expected to be routine and last no more than 2 days. On board were 25 people, 9 crew members, 16 passengers, and a cargo of medical supplies, food, wood, and other products destined for the isolated islands. Among the passengers was Dr. Alfred Dennis, a respected doctor who was traveling to Tekwa to perform a surgical operation. His presence highlighted the critical importance of the trip. In remote areas like these, access to medical care was scarce, often making the difference between life and death. Spirits were high when the Juita set sail from Apia with calm weather and calm seas. There was no indication that anything could go wrong. However, as the hours turned into days, something strange happened. The Joyita never reached the Tokelau Islands. At first, radio operators assumed that the ship had been delayed due to a minor mechanical problem or navigational error, something common in the South Pacific. However, on the third day, concern began spreading. The ship's radio had stopped working, and there were still no signs of the Joya. News of the disappearance spread quickly, and a large-scale search operation launched. Planes and ships tracked thousands of square kilometers of open ocean between Samoa and the Tokelau Islands, but found nothing. No trace of remains, no distress signals, not a trace of the missing ship. It was as if the Joyita had vanished, swallowed by the vast Pacific Ocean. Then, 5 weeks later, on November 10th, 1955, the mystery took a chilling turn. A merchant ship sailing in the waters near Fiji spotted something unusual afar. At first, it looked like a piece of wood floating in the waves, but as they approached, the crew realized it was the Jita, adrift and abandoned more than 600 meters off course. The place was unsettling. The ship, which was once unsinkable, was now leaning dangerously to one side, with part of the deck submerged under the water. Despite the damage, the Juita remained afloat, confirming the solidity of its cedar construction. But where were the passengers and crew? The ship was eerily silent, with no sign of life aboard. When the rescuers boarded, the scene they found was even more unsettling. The Joyita looked like a ghost ship. The interior was a mess, with cargo scattered across the deck. Boxes of medical supplies had been opened and blood-stained bandages were found on the deck, but there was no explanation for their use. The lifeboats and rafts were missing, as well as the ship's personal effects and navigation gear. In the main cabin, the radio was tuned to the international distress frequency, but its antenna was damaged, rendering it useless. Rescuers noted that the radio, in its current state, only had a range of about 3 kilometers, making it impossible for anyone on board to call for help. Adding to the mystery, the clock in the cabin had stopped at 10:25, as if frozen at the moment something terrible happened. The ship's engines presented another enigma. The main engine was out of service, and the auxiliary engine, a smaller backup one, was covered with blankets, suggesting that someone had tried to protect it from possible damage. Despite these issues, the ship was still seaworthy. It was not sinking, and there was no immediate danger to anyone aboard. However, for unknown reasons, the crew and passengers had abandoned Jita. What had happened to them all? Why had they abandoned the vessel? And what had led to its disturbing and inexplicable abandonment? The mystery of the Jita remains unsolved, leaving only questions in its wake. The ship's records had disappeared, along with any documents that could explain what happened. All the rescuers found were fragments of a mystery, an empty ship, signs of a hasty departure, and no clues to the whereabouts of the crew and passengers. As the Joyita was towed to port, the questions became even bigger. What could have led the crew to abandon a ship that was still afloat? Why did they take the lifeboats, yet leave behind important supplies like food and water? And why had the ship deviated so much from its course, adrift in the middle of the Pacific? The discovery of the MV Jita left investigators with endless, unanswered questions. It wasn't just the disturbing image of an empty ship adrift. It was the endless mysteries. What could have led 25 people to abandon a ship in perfect sailing condition? And why did they disappear without any trace? A popular theory is that a mechanical failure occurred. The Joyita was not in perfect condition when it set sail from Samoa. The ship's main engine was known to be unreliable, and some reports suggested that a leaking pipe caused water to build up in the hull, making the ship appear to sink. Fearing the worst, the crew may have panicked, believing the ship was about to sink, leading them to abandon it. But here's the problem. The Joyita was not sinking. Its robust cedar construction made it very buoyant, even if water entered. Abandoning such a sturdy ship would have been a last resort. However, the lifeboats were missing, meaning the crew had no intention of remaining on board. Another possibility is that the crew simply misjudged their situation. The South Pacific is known for strong, unpredictable currents, and if the Joya had been taking on water even briefly, the ship could have tilted enough for the crew to believe it was doomed. But if the lifeboats were used, why weren't they found? Did they stray too far from the search area? Or was there something more sinister that prevented anyone from surviving? There is also the theory of a criminal act. The Joya was carrying valuable cargo, including medical supplies, making it a target for pirates. Although the waters of the South Pacific were not lawless, piracy still existed in the 1950s. Could the crew and passengers have been attacked, thrown overboard, or even captured? This theory gains strength when the missing personal items and navigation equipment are considered. If pirates had boarded the ship, they could have taken everything of value before abandoning it. However, there were no signs of fighting, so piracy remains speculation. One of the most chilling theories is that the Joya was hit by a giant swell, a wall of water capable of capsizing ships. Giant swells are rare but extremely destructive, and some believe such a wave could have hit the Joya, flooding the deck and forcing the crew to abandon ship. But when the ship was found, it was still afloat, making this explanation difficult to believe. Why would the crew abandon a ship still capable of surviving such an event? Then there are stranger theories. Some suggest the crew encountered something unexplainable, a terrifying phenomenon that made them flee. Stories of ghost ships and sea monsters have haunted maritime lore for centuries. Although there is no evidence to support these ideas, they reflect the deep fear of the unknown that has always surrounded the sea. The Pacific Ocean is vast and full of secrets, and the idea that the Joya might have encountered something beyond our understanding remains a possibility we cannot easily dismiss. There is also the disturbing idea that perhaps we will never really know what happened. The ocean is relentless, capable of erasing all evidence in the blink of an eye. Whether the crew succumbed to thirst, storms, or even internal conflicts, the lack of physical clues only leaves us with conjecture. The Joya, like so many other ghost ships before it, continues to keep its mystery to this day. The story of the MV Joya did not end when she was found. In fact, its legend only grew stronger after it was salvaged and repaired. But for many, the Joya was no longer just a ship. It became a symbol of maritime mystery, a vessel cursed by its unanswered questions. After being repaired, the ship returned to service, but its dark reputation remained. Sailors were afraid to work on it, believing it was haunted by the spirits of those who had disappeared. Some even claimed to have heard strange noises coming from the ship or felt an unsettling presence on board. Whether these stories were true or just the result of the ship's disturbing past, they added another layer of intrigue to the Joya's story. Over time, the ship fell back into disrepair, this time intentionally. Left to its fate, the Joya became a forgotten relic of its own mystery, a physical reminder of the day it was discovered adrift in the vast Pacific Ocean, empty and unexplainable. But the legacy of the Joya is more than just its ghostly reputation. It is a reminder of the immensity and unpredictability of the ocean. Even in an era where technology and modern navigation are at their peak, the sea remains a place where mysteries unfold, where ships can disappear without a trace, and where answers often elude us. For historians and nautical enthusiasts, the Joya is an example of the unknown, a story that forces us to rethink what we know about human behavior, mechanical failures, and the raw power of nature. How can we explain that a ship continued afloat but was completely abandoned? How do we explain the disappearance of 25 people without a trace? And what about the disturbing details? The watch that had stopped, the bloodstains, the missing equipment, without clear answers. For the inhabitants of the South Pacific, the Joya is more than just a mystery. It is a warning. It is a story of how even the most routine journeys can turn into something unexplainable. It serves as a reminder that we must respect the sea, recognize its power, and understand that it can keep its secrets hidden as long as it wants. And so, the Joyita continues to be one of the most enduring enigmas of the ocean. Its history has inspired countless theories, raised debates among the experts, and captured the imagination of all those who wonder what really happened that fateful day in 1955. But like all great mysteries, the history of the Joyita has as much to do with what we don't know as with what we do. As the ship fades into history, its legacy stays alive. A ghost ship that continues to haunt the waters of the Pacific, linked forever to the mysteries of the deep. The MV Joyita may have been abandoned, but its story will never be music forgotten. It was the year 1986 when something strange and unforgettable was discovered under the waves off Japan. A local diving guide named Kihiro Aratake was exploring the waters off the coast of a small, quiet island called Yanaguni. What he found that day would unleash debates, theories, and curiosity around the world. At the bottom of the ocean lay enormous stone structures, so large and of such perfect shapes that they looked like the remains of an ancient city lost to time. At first glance, it looked like a place where people once lived, built temples, and dug streets. But not everyone agreed. Some experts believed that these formations were simply natural rocks shaped by the sea over millennia. Others were convinced that they were artificial, possibly part of a forgotten chapter in human history. This is the mysterious story of the Yanaguni Monument, one of the most fascinating underwater enigmas ever found. The story begins in a quiet and remote corner of the world. The island of Yanaguni, belonging to the Japanese prefecture of Okinawa, is surrounded by crystal-clear turquoise waters and steep, rocky cliffs. It is the last inhabited island of Japan before reaching Taiwan. Life there passes slowly, with nature as the main focus. It is a place where the sky merges with the sea in a calm, infinite embrace. But beneath those calm and beautiful waters hides a mystery that has baffled scientists and adventurers for decades. Kihachiro Aratake, who ran local dive tours, was always looking for new and exciting places to show his clients. Yanaguni already had a reputation for its impressive coral reefs and clear waters, a paradise for divers. But Aratake wanted to offer something more, something truly unforgettable. One sunny afternoon, while exploring the island's south coast, something unusual caught his attention. He observed a dark shadow at the ocean's bottom, darker than the surrounding area. Intrigued, he swam down to see it more closely. As he approached, the shadow became bigger and clearer, and then he saw it. What rose from the seabed was nothing like the rocks or corals he was used to. It was enormous. It had sharp edges and clean lines. The shapes were too straight and perfect to be natural. They looked like giant steps or terraces carved in stone, almost like a sunken pyramid or part of a long-lost city. Aratake could not believe what he was seeing. His eyes. He had stumbled upon something completely unexpected. And so began the mystery of the Yanaguni Monument, a place that even today challenges our understanding of nature and history. As Professor Masaki Kimura continued exploring the underwater structure near Yanaguni Island, he began to notice details that did not seem random. Some parts seemed to have been carefully shaped by human hands. He saw what looked like wide stairs leading to elevated platforms, long corridors carved directly into the rock, and even openings that looked like doors or windows. A particularly curious section of the site, called the Turtle, looked like a huge sculpture of a sea turtle sitting on a pedestal, as if placed there on purpose. The more Kimura saw, the more convinced he became that it was not an accident of nature. He concluded that these structures had been built by people, possibly by a civilization predating any written history. But there was a big question. How could such a structure be underwater? The monument is located about 30 meters below the sea surface, so at some point it was above sea level. Kimura estimated that it would have to be at least 10,000 years old, dating back to the last ice age, when the sea level was much lower because huge glaciers covered parts of Earth. If that were true, the Yanaguni Monument would become one of the oldest human-built structures ever discovered, possibly older than the pyramids of Egypt or Stonehenge. Such a discovery could completely change what we thought we knew about human history. Kimura spent years diving there and investigating it in detail. Every time he dove, he found something new that reinforced his theory. He claimed to have discovered what appeared to be stone tools buried in the seabed nearby, as well as marks and symbols carved into the rock, possibly remains of an ancient language. For Kimura, this monument was more than just a coincidence of nature. It was a lost piece of a forgotten world built by an advanced culture long before the civilizations we learned about at school. But not everyone agreed with him. As news of the Yonaguni monument spread, many experts began to weigh in, especially geologists who study how rocks and landforms are created. Some of them were skeptical. They believed the structure could be explained by natural forces. The main material of Yonaguni is sandstone, a rock that can crack in straight lines when exposed to water, pressure, and earth movements. Over thousands of years, underwater currents and tectonic plate movements could have shaped the steps, terraces, and angles that make the monument appear artificial. One of the most outspoken critics was Dr. Robert Shaw, a geologist at Boston University. He himself traveled to Yonaguni and dove to see the monument up close. Although he agreed that some parts of the site were unusual, he believed that most of it could be explained by natural erosion. In his opinion, there was not enough solid evidence, such as tools, ceramics, or other signs of human life, to say for sure that the monument had been built by people. The debate over the Yonaguni monument quickly became a hot topic. On the one hand, Kimura and his followers pointed to the precise shapes and detailed layout of the monument, arguing that nature alone could not create something so organized. On the other hand, skeptics insisted that, without clear artifacts, it could not be said that the site had been built by humans. Both sides presented strong arguments, and, as time went on, the mystery only deepened. Today, the Yonaguni monument has become a dream destination for divers. People from all over the world come to swim among its labyrinthine structures, surrounded by colorful fish and the calm silence of the deep sea. It is a place where history and nature seem to merge, and where it is impossible not to feel a sense of wonder. Whether it is the remains of a long-lost civilization or an incredible creation of nature, the Yonaguni monument continues to amaze, intrigue, and inspire all who visit. The Yonaguni monument quickly became one of the most controversial discoveries in modern history, attracting the attention of scientists, historians, and explorers worldwide. On one side were people like Professor Masaki Kimura, who firmly believed that the monument was the work of an ancient and unknown civilization, a relic so old that it could change everything we thought we knew about the beginnings of human history. On the other side were the skeptics, especially geologists, who believed that the monument was not the work of man at all. They saw it as an impressive but completely natural creation shaped over thousands of years by the powerful forces of the ocean, waves, earthquakes, and time. Kimura's theory was bold. He believed that the monument was not just a building, but part of a much larger complex that included roads, smaller buildings, and even areas that appeared to have been used for rituals, such as a stone altar. According to Kimura, the entire site could be up to 10,000 years old, possibly even older than the famous pyramids of Egypt or the stone circles of Stonehenge. If his theory was true, it would mean that an advanced society existed in this part of the world at a time when most people were believed to be simple hunter-gatherers. It would mean that human civilization began much earlier than we had ever imagined. Kimura spent years diving in Yonaguni and studying the site. Over time, he claimed to have found even more clues to support his idea. He reported discovering stone tools near the monument, as well as engravings and symbols carved into the rock, marks that could belong to an ancient language or culture. He even suggested that some parts of the monument, such as the famous turtle formation, have been carefully carved to look like animals or meaningful symbols, and not just random shapes created by nature. For Kimura, all these details pointed to one thing. This place had been shaped by human hands. But many experts disagreed. One of the most vehement critics of Kimura's theory was Dr. Robert Shaw, a well-known geologist at Boston University. After diving at the site himself, Shaw admitted that some parts of the structure seemed unusual, but he was not convinced that it had been built by man. In his opinion, the characteristics of the monument could be explained by simple geology. The rock that forms Yonaguni is mainly sandstone, which tends to crack in straight lines. In combination with underwater earthquakes and strong currents, this type of erosion can create straight edges, flat steps, and terraces that appear artificial but are completely natural. Shaw was not the only one. Other geologists pointed at similar natural formations found around the world. In Northern Ireland, the Giant's Causeway is made up of thousands of perfectly shaped hexagonal columns, created not by people, but by ancient lava flows. Into the Bahamas, Bimini Road was believed to be a lost road from Atlantis, but scientists later discovered that it was simply a natural pattern in the limestone caused by erosion over time. One of the biggest problems with Kimura's theory was the lack of clear physical evidence. To confirm that a deposit is of human origin, archaeologists usually need to find artifacts, such as ceramics, tools, bones, or other objects made by people. Although Kimura claimed to have found stone tools near the site, critics argued that those tools could have drifted there from another place in the ocean and did not necessarily prove that the monument was built by humans. The debate was not focused only on Yunani. It was part of a much broader question. How do we understand and interpret the ancient past? Kimura and his followers believed that the monument could help us rethink the chronology of human history. They saw it as a door to new discoveries, a clue that our ancestors may have been much more advanced than we believe. Some even related Yunani to ancient legends, such as the mythical continent of Mu, which is said to have sunk into the Pacific Ocean thousands of years ago. Although there is no scientific evidence that Mu existed, the stories of submerged lands appear in many cultures, from Atlantis in the west to Lemuria in the east. Kimura imagined Yunani as a sacred place, a cultural and religious center for peoples who disappeared long ago. Its step design reminded him of the ziggurats and pyramids found in places like Mesopotamia and Central America. If his theory were true, it could mean that human history goes back much further than we had ever imagined. But, once again, the skeptics had their doubts. They pointed out an important problem. There was no clear connection between the Yunani monument and any known ancient civilization. Unlike places like Machu Picchu or the Great Pyramid of Giza, where artifacts, written records, and nearby settlements confirm human intervention, Yunani is a unique case. There are no nearby villages, no ceramics or bones, no ruins of houses or temples. There is nothing that solidly links the structure to a human culture. There is also the question of its age. Kimura estimated that the monument is more than 10,000 years old, based on the rise in sea level since the end of the last glaciation. But dating a site in this way is complicated. Without carbon-dated artifacts or other physical evidence, it is impossible to know for sure the monument's real age. Despite all the debates and unanswered questions, the Yunani monument continues to fascinate people around the world. For many, it is not just about rocks or ruins. It is about curiosity, imagination, and the deep human desire to discover the secrets of the past. Whether it is a natural wonder or a forgotten masterpiece of an ancient civilization, one thing is certain. Yunani hides a powerful mystery under the waves and continues to inspire new questions with each dive. The idea of a lost civilization that created enormous structures that ended up being swallowed by the sea is incredibly intriguing. It appeals to our deep fascination with the unknown and our strong desire to discover the secrets that lie beneath the surface. Even if the monument is a natural formation, it is still a masterpiece of nature, an impressive reminder of the immense power and creativity of Earth. The straight lines, the terraces, and the sharp angles. These characteristics may have been shaped by erosion and tectonic activity, but they seem so deliberate, almost as if someone created them intentionally, like a work of art. Standing by the sea, surrounded by imposing walls and large platforms, it is easy to understand why so many divers have been attracted to its mystery. The Yunani monument, after all, remains an enigma. Is it a forgotten relic of an ancient world? A symbol of human genius lost in the sands of time? Or is it simply a natural wonder shaped over thousands of years by the ocean's relentless power? For now, the answer remains hidden under the waves, waiting to be discovered. The mystery of the Yanani monument leaves us with more questions than answers. Is it the creation of an ancient civilization or simply a masterpiece of nature? In any case, it is a story that reminds us how much we have left to explore in our world and how many secrets are hidden beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. The Challenger Deep is the deepest known point in the ocean, located within the Mariana Trench. But the story of this incredible place goes beyond its enormous depth. The Challenger Deep is surrounded by many mysteries that have puzzled scientists for years, including strange, unexplained sounds recorded in the Mariana Trench. These sounds suggest that something unusual may be hidden in the vast, dark abyss. Let's embark on a journey into the unknown, where the Challenger Deep and the secrets of the Mariana Trench await. The ocean covers more than 70% of the Earth's surface, but its greatest mysteries are hidden in its deepest regions. The Challenger Deep, the deepest point on Earth, sinks almost 7 miles under the surface of the Pacific Ocean. It is so deep that it exceeds Mount Everest in height, which is difficult to imagine. It is such an extreme and isolated place that we have explored it less than we have the surface of the moon. But what is at the bottom of this dark abyss? What kind of life survives in a world where the temperature is just above freezing, where the pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than at sea level, and where eternal darkness reigns? And then there are those strange sounds. Scientists have recorded noises in the Mariana Trench that they cannot explain. Are these sounds caused by natural processes, or do they suggest something even stranger lurks in the depths? Something we still do not understand. This is the story of the Challenger Deep and the mysteries of the Mariana Trench, a place that seems like Earth's last frontier. The Challenger Deep is located at the southern end of the Mariana Trench, a place so remote and mysterious that for centuries it appeared as a blank space on our maps. The trench extends for almost 1,500 m and plunges almost 36,000 feet below the ocean surface. It is one of the most extreme environments on Earth. The pressure here is more than 1,000 times greater than at sea level. The temperature is close to freezing, and sunlight never reaches its depths. The trench is like an underwater version of outer space, a hostile and strange world where life shouldn't survive. And yet, life exists here, thriving in ways that are still not fully understood. To give you an idea of the Challenger Deep's depth, let's put it in perspective. At its deepest point, it is almost 11 kilometers below the surface, which is more than 16 kilometers deeper than Everest height. Imagine you are on Everest's summit, contemplating the vast landscape that stretches out at your feet, and then imagine sinking all that distance into the cold, dark ocean. That is the Challenger Deep. The Mariana Trench was formed by tectonic forces when the Pacific Plate slowly slid beneath the smaller Mariana Plate in a process called subduction. This geological collision has created a deep scar in Earth's crust, forming a trench that acts as a border between two enormous rock plates. Although scientists have studied the trench's formation and structure, much of what is inside remains a mystery to be discovered. The Challenger Deep remains one of the least explored places on Earth. It wasn't until relatively recently that we realized it existed. The trench was first discovered in 1875 during the voyage of the HMS Challenger, a British research ship sent on a mission to explore the world's oceans. Using a weighted rope, the crew measured the trench's depth and discovered that it was much deeper than any other they had encountered before. This discovery marked the beginning of our fascination with the Mariana Trench and its deepest point, which would later be named after the ship that first measured it. Although we have mapped and plotted the Challenger Deep, exploring it has proven far more difficult. The conditions down there are so extreme that even the most advanced technology struggles to survive under the immense pressure. For decades, the Challenger Deep was considered more of an idea than a real place, so distant and dangerous that it seemed almost impossible to reach. However, That changed in 1960, when two men, Jacques Picard and Don Walsh, decided to go where no human had gone before. In 1960, aboard the Bathyscaphe Trieste, Picard and Walsh began a journey that would go down in history. The Trieste was no ordinary ship. It was specifically designed for deep-sea exploration and was basically a metal sphere surrounded by a steel and gasoline hull manufactured to withstand the unimaginable pressure of the ocean depths. The sphere was small, barely enough to hold two people, and the interior was cramped, claustrophobic, and poorly lit. Every part of the ship was built to withstand the crushing pressure of more than 16,000 pounds per square inch, the kind of force that could instantly crush a human body. Their journey began just after sunrise. As the Trieste sank into the water, the outside world slowly darkened until all that could be seen through the windows was total darkness. When they reached the midnight zone, about 3,000 feet below the surface, there was no sunlight at all, replaced by an unsettling void. The only light came from bioluminescent creatures floating in front of the window, whose glowing bodies created an otherworldly spectacle. But as they continued to descend, life became increasingly scarce. At about 30,000 feet, the Trieste walls began to creak and groan under the enormous pressure. For Picard and Walsh, the sounds were unsettling, a constant reminder of how fragile their vessel was in the face of the ocean's immense force. But despite the risks, they pressed on, descending deeper into the abyss. After nearly 5 hours, they finally reached the Challenger Deep at 35,814 feet. They were now at Earth's deepest point, a place where no human had ever set foot. Outside the window, the seabed was flat and empty, a vast expanse of sediment and clay. The pressure was so intense that it compressed the water, making it denser than at the surface. The two men only spent 20 minutes at the bottom, staring into the darkness. To their surprise, they saw what looked like a flatfish swimming along the seabed. It was an amazing discovery, since it suggested that life could exist in some of the most extreme environments on Earth. But with oxygen running low and dangers increasing, they had no choice but to begin their ascent. The success of the Trieste mission was a monumental achievement, but it also revealed how little we knew of the ocean depths. For many years, the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the world's oceans, remained virtually unexplored. Only robotic probes and unmanned vehicles had ventured into its depths. It was not until 2012, more than 50 years later, that filmmaker James Cameron made his own trip to the Challenger Deep. He did it aboard the Deep Sea Challenger, a submersible specially designed for it. Cameron's mission was not only to explore, but also to share that experience with the world. He spent hours at the bottom capturing stunning images of the ocean floor and collecting samples for scientific study. Unlike previous explorers such as Don Walsh and Jacob Picker, who were limited to simple observation, Cameron had advanced technology. With high-tech cameras and sensors, he was able to document the strange, extraterrestrial world of the Challenger Deep in incredible detail. What he discovered was both fascinating and sobering. The ocean floor was teeming with unusual creatures, such as translucent sea cucumbers, shrimp-like amphipods, and microbial mats. These organisms had adapted to the harsh conditions of the trench, thriving in total darkness and depending on chemical reactions to survive instead of sunlight. For Cameron, the experience was transformative, a reminder of how little we really know about the ocean and its hidden depths. Despite these advances, the Challenger Deep remains one of the least known places on Earth. Less than 5% of the world's oceans have been mapped in detail, and the Challenger Deep is no exception. Its remote location, along with the extreme cost and complexity of deep-sea exploration, means that much of its history remains unknown. What could be in its unexplored depths? Are there unknown life forms waiting to be discovered, or geological phenomena that could completely alter our understanding of the planet? For now, the Challenger Deep remains an enigma, a place where science and mystery coexist. It is a stark reminder of how much remains to be explored on our planet. A dark, strange world full of infinite mysteries. But the Challenger Deep is only a small part of the vast Mariana Trench, a place where the limits of human knowledge are constantly expanded. More than 1,500 m wide in the western Pacific, the trench is a huge, shadowy canyon full of extreme conditions, crushing pressure, frigid temperatures, and geological forces almost impossible to understand. Despite its harshness, the trench has not remained silent. In recent years, scientists have captured a series of disturbing sounds coming from its depths. These recordings range from subtle crackles of moving tectonic plates to strange and disturbing whale-like sounds that seem impossible to explain. What are these sounds? Are they simply natural phenomena? Or could they be signs of something even more mysterious? While we move away from the Challenger Deep, let's focus on the strange acoustics of the Mariana Trench and the mysterious signals that have baffled scientists and sparked endless debate. The Mariana Trench is the deepest oceanic trench on Earth, a place where the laws of nature seem to reach their limit. Its incredible depth is only comparable to its inaccessibility. The trench is so remote that even reaching its surface can take weeks of travel by boat. Below the surface is a world shaped by powerful geological forces. The trench is formed when the Pacific Plate is pushed under the Mariana Plate in a process known as subduction. This process generates intense seismic activity, underwater volcanoes, and huge hydrothermal vents that release superheated water into the sea depths. But the trench is more than just a geological wonder. It is also a strange soundscape full of noises ranging from the common to the extraordinary. Sound behaves differently underwater, where the immense pressure and density of the ocean depths can amplify and distort even the faintest sounds. For decades, scientists have used underwater microphones called hydrophones to record the sounds of the trench in an effort to understand this mysterious environment. What they have captured has been much more than they expected. When the hydrophones were first placed in the Mariana Trench, researchers expected to hear the usual sounds of distant underwater volcanoes, the faint groans of moving tectonic plates, or the occasional song of a whale diving into the depths. But what they recorded went far beyond that. They heard sounds so strange and alien that they seemed to come from another world. The best known of these strange sounds is called Western Pacific Biot Wang. It was first recorded in the year 2014. At first, it begins as a deep moan, like the creaking of an old machine. Then, it rises rapidly to become a high-pitched metallic squeal that cuts through the air before falling into a deep, resonant roar. It is a sound different from any other previously recorded in nature, and it repeats in a pattern that suggests that it is not a random event. The Biot twang has been captured many times, always in the same area of the Western Pacific. What makes it especially disconcerting is its frequency range, so unusual that it does not match any known geological or biological source. But the Biot twang is just one of many mysteries. Other recordings made with underwater microphones called hydrophones have captured bursts of rhythmic pulses, almost like sonar. However, they do not come from any man-made device. These pulses sound sharp, mechanical, and strangely deliberate, almost as if trying to communicate something deep within the trench. The source of these pulses remains unknown. There are also long, deep noises that extend throughout the audio spectrum. These low-frequency growls could be related to geological activity, such as the rubbing of tectonic plates or underwater landslides. But their power and clarity suggest that there could be something more. Could these sounds come from a huge, yet-to-be-discovered creature moving through the trench? Or are they natural phenomena amplified by the trench's unique acoustics? One of the most disturbing recordings is a sound that some scientists have dubbed the whistle. It is a high-pitched, wavering noise, almost like an animal's cry. However, it resonates in such a way that it seems vast and distant, as if it came from the depths of Earth. Some have described it as lugubrious, even disturbing, as if the trench were alive and screaming in pain. Other sounds are even stranger. One recording captured what appeared to be a constant, rhythmic tapping, similar to a heartbeat. It was faint but persistent, and its regularity suggested it had a purpose. Could it be the sound of a deep-sea creature communicating or moving? Or could it be something completely mechanical, such as an underwater current or the resonance of moving water masses? What makes the sounds of the Mariana Trench so captivating? Each noise is unique, from the strange biot twang to the disturbing whistles and rhythmic pulses. Together, they create an acoustic portrait of a place that seems to defy the natural order. Although some of these sounds may have possible explanations, many remain a complete mystery. The mysterious sounds of the Mariana Trench have given rise to a wide range of theories, from scientific to the truly fantastic. One of the most widespread ideas is that many of the sounds we hear in the ocean are created by living beings. The ocean harbors an incredible variety of life, much of which remains unknown to us. The Mariana Trench, one of the deepest parts of the ocean, represents one of marine science's last frontiers. The creatures that live in the deep sea have adapted to survive in extreme environments, and their strange characteristics often seem unreal. Could the mysterious biot sound be the sound of an unknown creature? Some scientists believe so. The sound's pattern, its frequency, and how it repeats suggest that it could come from a living being. It is not surprising, since the deep sea has a history of surprising discoveries. For example, the colossal squid, once believed to be a sailor's tale, has only been shown to exist in recent decades. If there's a creature in the Mariana Trench that uses a new way of communicating, it is very possible that we have just heard it for the first time. However, there's a problem. The biot sound, along with other sounds recorded in the trench, does not match the sounds of any known marine animal. Not even whales, which produce some of the most complex and varied sounds in the ocean, emit noises with such high frequencies or with the mechanical and metallic quality of the biot twang. This has led some researchers to consider other explanations. Perhaps the sound are not biological, but geological. The Mariana Trench is a place in constant change, with moving tectonic plates and underwater volcanoes that heat the ocean floor. These movements can cause vibrations that propagate kilometers away and can be distorted by bouncing off the unusual shape of the trench. The rhythmic pulses heard in the trench could be caused by these geological processes, such as earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, or even the slow displacement of underwater landslides. But while this idea may explain some of the sounds, it does not explain their variety or their disturbing, almost extraterrestrial quality. Then there are the more speculative theories. Some scientists suggest that the sound could be related to unknown underwater objects, sometimes called unidentified submerged objects, or USOs. The ocean is vast and mostly unexplored, and there are many stories about strange lights and ships seen underwater. Could the rhythmic sounds or the biot twang come from unidentified advanced technologies operating in the trench? Although there are no firm proofs to support this theory, the sound's mysterious nature gives rise to speculations. Other researchers have proposed that the sounds could be caused by entirely new natural processes, never observed nor understood before. The depths of the ocean are a place of extremes where pressure, temperature, and chemical reactions create conditions difficult to replicate on land. Could these strange sounds result from these interactions? This possibility excites scientists and ocean enthusiasts alike. Finally, some suggest the sounds could indicate something even bigger and more important. Perhaps a completely new ecosystem, a new type of life, or even hidden geological features that could change our understanding of Earth. The Mariana Trench is a place where science and mystery go together, and each new discovery raises more questions than answers. But one thing is certain. The sounds of the Mariana Trench remind us how little we know about our planet. They invite us to explore, to overcome the limits of technology and knowledge, and to continue asking ourselves what lies beneath. When listening to these strange noises, we cannot help asking ourselves what else is out there waiting to be discovered. On November 15, 2017, the eerie San Juan, a diesel-electric submarine of the Argentine Navy, set sail on what was to be a normal mission. The submarine was one of Argentina's most advanced vessels, a German-made TR-1700 class ship designed for long operations. Launched in 1985, The San Juan had served in the Navy for over 3 decades and had recently undergone a complete overhaul. This process was intended to extend its useful life by another 30 years. The mission itself was simple. The San Juan was tasked with patrolling Argentina's territorial waters, monitoring illegal fishing, and maintaining a visible presence in the South Atlantic. The crew, composed of 44 sailors, was highly trained, a mix of experienced officers and promising recruits, all prepared for the challenges of submarine duty. The South Atlantic is not an easy place to navigate. Its waters are cold and rough, and the region is known for its unpredictable weather. The submarine departed from Ushuaia, a remote port city at the southern tip of Argentina, often called the end of the world. From there, the San Juan began its journey north toward its base in Mar del Plata, a bustling naval center on Argentina's east coast. It was a familiar route, which the submarine had traveled many times. According to all reports, the mission was progressing smoothly. On the morning of November 15th, the San Juan contacted Naval Command to report its position and the progress of its journey. During this communication, the crew mentioned detecting an electrical problem in the forward battery compartment. According to the report, seawater had entered through the submarine's snorkel, causing a short circuit in the battery system. Although this was a potentially serious problem, the crew assured Naval Command that they had isolated the affected compartment and were continuing their journey under control. That was the last news of the ARA San Juan. When the submarine did not communicate later that day, concern began to grow. By design, submarines typically operate in silence, cutting off communications to maintain stealth. The failure to communicate was not cause for immediate alarm, but as the hours passed, Naval Command began to fear the worst. The San Juan was officially declared missing, and Argentina launched a massive search and rescue operation. The families of the crew gathered at the naval base in Mar del Plata, desperate for news. As the Navy scrambled to locate the vessel, the search for the San Juan quickly became one of the largest submarine rescue operations ever. Within days, Argentina requested assistance from 18 countries, including the United States, Russia, and the United Kingdom. Each of these nations contributed advanced technology and expertise to the operation, from state-of-the-art sonar systems to specialized underwater drones. Despite international cooperation, the South Atlantic proved a formidable adversary. The waters where the San Juan disappeared were vast and treacherous, stretching thousands of kilometers in all directions. The submarine's last known location was near the Gulf of San Jorge, an area where the seabed drops abruptly into deep underwater trenches. These depths, combined with strong currents and unpredictable weather, made the search a logistical nightmare. While ships and planes scoured the area, hope remained that the San Juan was still intact and that its crew might be alive, albeit stranded. Submarines are equipped with emergency oxygen supplies that can last for several days in the event of a breakdown. If the crew had managed to seal off the damaged compartment and surface, there would still be some chance of rescuing them. But as the days turned into weeks, the stark reality of the situation began to emerge. One of the most disturbing clues came from an international group that tracks hydroacoustic signals, sounds produced by underwater events such as earthquakes, explosions, or other activity. On the same day that the San Juan stopped communicating, its sensors detected an unusual sound near the submarine's last known location. The sound seemed to coincide with what the experts describe as an implosion, which led them to believe that the San Juan could have suffered a catastrophic failure. Its hull could have collapsed under the immense ocean pressure. The discovery was devastating. If the submarine had imploded, it would have happened instantly, giving the crew no time to react or send a distress signal. But even with these bleak tests, the exact location of the San Juan remained unknown. The search continued with Navy ships deploying sonar to scan the ocean floor and planes flying over the area. Despite these efforts, the submarine seemed to disappear without trace. As the days turned into weeks, frustration grew. The families of the crew, gathered at the Mar del Plata naval base, were increasingly upset by the lack of information. Protests erupted, with accusations that the Navy had not followed safety protocols and mismanaged the search. The incident soon became a national controversy, highlighting the state of the Argentine army and its obsolete equipment. In late November, the mission officially shifted from searching for survivors to a recovery operation. Hopes of finding anyone alive faded, replaced by the grim task of locating wreckage and discovering the truth of what had happened. However, the ocean remained silent, hiding the secrets of the San Juan in its depths. It would take more than a year of arduous effort before any real progress was made in solving the mystery. As the months passed and the remains of the San Juan remained unfound, speculation grew about the possible causes of its disappearance. The absence of answers gave rise to numerous theories, some based on evidence, others purely speculative. Each theory painted a chilling picture of how what seemed like a routine patrol could have ended in catastrophe. One of the main theories focused on an electrical problem that the crew had communicated just before their last transmission. The batteries of the San Juan, vital for its operation, were especially vulnerable to failures if seawater entered the compartments where they were stored. According to the submarine's last message, seawater had entered through the snorkel, causing a short circuit in the front battery compartment. Although the crew assured the Naval Command that the situation was under control, experts suggested that the problem could have been much more serious than they implied. One possibility is that the short circuit caused the production of hydrogen gas, which is created as a byproduct of electrical failures in lead-acid batteries. If this gas accumulated in the confined battery compartment, even the smallest spark could have caused a huge explosion. This would coincide with the unusual acoustic phenomenon detected near the last known location of the San Juan, a sound that, according to experts, could have been the result of an implosion or an underwater explosion. Another theory suggests the San Juan suffered a structural failure due to the immense pressure of the ocean depths. Submarines are designed to operate at certain depths with hulls built to withstand the crushing weight of water. However, even the most resistant structures can weaken over time due to wear. The San Juan was over 30 years old and had undergone a major overhaul in 2014, during which many parts were replaced or repaired. Critics questioned whether the remodeling was sufficient, suggesting defects in the submarine's hull might have gone unnoticed. If the San Juan descended beyond its safe operating depth, the pressure could have caused the hull to collapse almost instantaneously. There was also speculation about external factors, but these remain unclear. The South Atlantic is a vast and busy area, frequented by fishing boats, commercial vessels, and even foreign submarines. Some have wondered if the San Juan could have collided with another vessel, either on the surface or at depth. A collision at great depth could have severely damaged the submarine, preventing it from ascending or sending an emergency signal. Others have suggested the submarine could have been hit by a torpedo or mine by accident, although there is no evidence to support this. One of the most debated theories is that the San Juan was on a secret mission when it disappeared. Some sources have claimed that the submarine was observing illegal fishing or foreign military activity in the region. This has led to speculation that the San Juan could have encountered another nation's submarine or even been attacked as part of a deliberate act of aggression. Although the Argentine Navy has rejected these claims, the mission's secretive nature has only fueled conspiracy theories. Perhaps the most disturbing possibility is that the San Juan was simply a victim of the harsh ocean environment. The sea is vast, powerful, and indifferent to human life. A combination of mechanical failures, human error, and natural conditions could have created a perfect storm that led to disaster. The lack of clear answers deepened the mystery, leaving families and experts with questions that seemed difficult to answer. For more than a year, the eerie San Juan remained hidden under the waves, its fate uncertain. The search efforts, although exhaustive, were hampered by the size of the South Atlantic and the difficulty in locating a submarine in such deep waters. As the months passed, and after a full year, the hope of finding the ship seemed to fade. But in November 2018, there was finally a breakthrough. A private company hired by the Argentine government called Ocean Infinity joined the search with advanced technology capable of mapping the seabed in detail. Its ship, the seabed constructor was equipped with autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, robotic systems designed to operate at extreme depths. These AUVs could scan the seabed with sonars and high-resolution cameras, offering a precision that previous searches lacked. On November 17, 2018, days after the first anniversary of the disappearance of the San Juan, Ocean Infinity made a shocking discovery. At more than 3,000 feet below the surface, in an area that had already been registered but not completely mapped, they found the remains of the submarine. The images sent by the AUVs showed a disturbing scene. The hull of the San Juan was crushed and twisted, its parts scattered across the ocean floor. The submarine had suffered a catastrophic failure. Its structure imploded from the immense pressure of the sea depths. The location of the remains coincided with the acoustic anomaly detected after the last communication from the submarine. This suggested that the San Juan had probably been lost within hours of its last transmission. The implosion would have occurred instantaneously, so fast the crew would not have had time to react or send a distress signal. It was an overwhelming confirmation of the worst fears about the submarine's fate. For the families of the 44 sailors on board, the discovery brought both relief and pain. After more than a year of uncertainty, they finally had answers. But the vision of the remains was a painful reminder of the tragedy. Many relatives expressed their anger towards the Argentine Navy, accusing it of mishandling the search and of not adequately guaranteeing the safety of the submarine. The incident unleashed a widespread clamor for a reform of the Argentine Army, with demands for better maintenance, training, and transparency. The finding of the San Juan also highlighted the enormous challenges of submarine operations. The ship was found in one of the most hostile environments, deep, cold, and remote. It was a testament to the dedication of those who participated in the search that the submarine was found. However, even with the remains located, many questions remain unanswered. What exactly caused the catastrophic failure? Could it have been avoided? And what lessons can be learned to ensure such a tragedy never happens again? The remains of the San Juan still lie on the seabed, a stark reminder of the risks taken by those who venture into the ocean's depths. Its discovery brought some peace, but also highlighted the fragility of human life facing the immense power of nature. The story of the San Juan is a dark chapter in submarine exploration, which continues to resonate as we overcome the limits of what is possible under the waves. In 1872, a ship called Mary Celeste was found adrift in the vast Atlantic Ocean. Its sails were only partially hoisted. Its valuable cargo was completely intact, and there was abundant food and supplies on board. But there was a disturbing problem. There was not a single person on the ship. The crew had disappeared. There were no corpses, no signs of struggle or storm. Nothing. Only a silent and empty ship that slid disturbingly between the waves. To this day, the disappearance of the crew of the Mary Celeste remains one of the most chilling and perplexing mysteries in the history of the sea. At first glance, the Mary Celeste did not seem like a ship destined for legend. It was not a grandiose or luxurious ship. It was a simple brigantine, a two-masted sailboat built to work, not to achieve fame or beauty. With more than 30 meters in length and about 75 meters in beam, it looked much like any other cargo ship of the 19th century. What it lacked in size and splendor, it made up for in strength and resistance. The Mary Celeste was a sturdy and hard-working ship, designed to transport heavy loads through dangerous waters. It was originally launched in 1861 in Nova Scotia with a different name, the Amazon. From the beginning, its journey was problematic. On its first trip, it suffered damage and had to be returned for repair. Over the years, it changed owners several times and seemed to suffer one misfortune after another. In 1867, the ship ran aground during a strong storm near the island of Cape Breton. Dented and abandoned, it was eventually rescued, sold at auction, and renamed Mary Celeste. Did this new name intend to give it a new beginning and ward off the bad luck that haunted her? No one knows for sure, but if that was the hope, it didn't work. In 1872, the Mary Celeste had a new captain, Benjamin Briggs. Captain Briggs was everything the ship was not. He was an experienced and trusted sailor with many years of navigation through the unpredictable Atlantic Ocean behind him. He was known to be cautious, meticulous, and disciplined. Those who sailed with him respected his calm demeanor and good sense when making decisions. He did not take unnecessary risks and, of course, did not allow carelessness on board. But this trip was more than just a job for Captain Briggs. It was something personal. He had carefully chosen 7 crew members, all of whom he deeply trusted. And what was even more unusual, he took his beloved wife Sarah and his 2-year-old daughter Sophia with him. Although it was not usual for captains to take their families on such long, risky trips, Briggs was a man very dedicated to his family. He considered this trip, a business trip to Genoa, Italy, as an opportunity to combine work and time with his family. On November 7th, 1872, the Mary Celeste sailed from the port of New York with a cargo of 171 barrels of industrial alcohol. It was not the type of alcohol found in bars. It was highly flammable and was used mainly in factories and in the manufacturing industry. Its safe transport required a lot of care, but Captain Briggs was well prepared for the task. The first weeks of the trip passed uneventfully. The November seas were relatively calm, and the navigation log showed a constant advance while they headed east in direction to Europe. The crew worked hard and followed orders. The Briggs family settled comfortably into their cabins. Everything seemed perfectly normal. But when the ship approached the Azores, a group of islands in the middle of the Atlantic, something changed. To this day, nobody knows exactly what went wrong. Did they face a sudden storm? Did a giant wave strike them? Was it something more mysterious and strange? The only thing we know for sure is that the Mary Celeste was later found floating without crew. They had disappeared without a trace or clue. The ship was still intact, with provisions and sails. And so, the Mary Celeste became a ghost ship, a floating enigma that has intrigued sailors, historians, and mystery lovers for over 150 years. On December 4th, 1872, a British sailboat named the Grazia crossed the vast Atlantic. The ship had sailed from New York and headed to Gibraltar. Although it had a similar purpose to the Mary Celeste, both were cargo ships. The De Grazia had started its trip several weeks after the Mary Celeste, meaning that it was hundreds of miles behind. Captain David Mohouse, in command of the De Grazia, was no stranger to sea. He had spent years sailing through the unpredictable waters of the Atlantic and was known for his firm hand and his sharp instinct. That morning, as the Grazia was approaching the group of islands known as the Azores, something strange caught the crew's attention. In the distance, on the horizon, a ship drifted. Its sails were partially hoisted but hung loose, waving aimlessly. The vessel did not seem to move with direction or control. It was simply letting itself drift with the ocean current. Captain Mohouse thought the ship might be in danger, not unusual in those days. Strong storms, accidents, and rough seas often wrecked ships, leaving dozens dead yearly. But as the Grazia approached, a feeling of unease grew. Through his spyglass, Captain Mohouse saw no one on deck. No flag was flying. No distress signals were raised. There was no indication of movement or life aboard. When he finally read the name painted on the stern, he was stunned. It was the Mary Celeste. Captain Mohouse knew that name well. I personally knew his captain, Benjamin Briggs. In fact, the two had dined together before starting their trips. They had sailed from the same port with only a few days' difference. And now there was the Mary Celeste, adrift and apparently deserted in the ocean. Worried about what might have happened to those on board, Captain Mohouse gave a quick order. Sent a boarding team. 2 sailors from the Grazia approached the silent ship and went aboard. What they found would baffle and disturb not only them, but the world for generations. The Mary Celeste was disturbingly calm. The only sounds were the creaking wooden planks and the gentle lapping of waves against the hull. Inside the ship, everything seemed intact. The cabins and cargo were in order. The barrels of salted meat, fresh water, and other supplies were carefully stored and untouched. There was enough food for the crew to survive for months. Personal items were still in place. Clothes in the drawers, toys that belonged to Captain Briggs' young daughter Sophia, and even valuables like gold coins and navigation tools. For the most part, the ship's cargo of 171 barrels of industrial alcohol was still there. Only 9 empty barrels were found, a strange detail that would later give rise to many theories about what had happened. In Captain Briggs' cabin, the boarding party found a ship's log. The last entry was written on November 25th and indicated that the ship was near the Azores then. The diary entry was calm and routine. Nothing suggested any problems. The weather was normal. The ship was following its course. Everything seemed fine, and yet the crew had disappeared. All the lifeboats were missing, which meant that the crew had abandoned ship. But why? The Mary Celeste was still seaworthy. There was no damage, no signs of fire, flooding, or violence. It didn't look like a shipwreck or crime scene. It seemed as if people had simply disappeared, leaving everything behind in haste. The sailors who had boarded the ship could not shake the feeling that something was amiss. It was as if time had suddenly stopped on the Mary Celeste, freezing every sign of life. They sailed the ghost ship back to Gibraltar, where authorities would launch an investigation to shed light on the disappearance. But bringing the ship to port was only a start. What followed was more than a century of rumors, investigations, and wild speculations. How was it possible for a sturdy, well-equipped ship to be found sailing alone with no one aboard? What could have led a responsible, experienced captain like Benjamin Briggs to order his crew and family to abandon the safety of the ship? For decades, people have searched for answers. Some theories are based on science and logic. Others delve into the strange and incredible. One of the simplest ideas is that a natural phenomenon forced the crew to abandon ship. A popular theory involves rogue waves, huge walls of water that can appear out of nowhere due to climate changes or underwater currents. If a wave like that had hit the Mary Celeste, it could have flooded part of the ship and scared the crew into thinking they were sinking. In a moment of panic, they may have rushed into the lifeboat, hoping to return when safe. But the sea jealously guards its secrets, and the complete truth of what happened aboard the Mary Celeste remains one of the ocean's greatest mysteries. One theory about the mysterious disappearance of the Mary Celeste crew is that the ship could have collided with a waterspout. A waterspout is like a tornado, but forms over water. These strange, swirling storms can bring strong winds and heavy rains, which can cause a ship to rock dangerously and scare everyone aboard. If the crew thought that the Mary Celeste was in serious danger, it is possible that they decided to abandon the ship quickly, with the intention of returning when the weather improved. Another possible reason for the crew's disappearance relates to the ship's cargo. The Mary Celeste was transporting 171 barrels of industrial alcohol, a very flammable liquid. Subsequent investigations revealed that 9 of those barrels were completely empty. Some researchers believe the alcohol spilled, releasing dangerous gases into the ship's hold. If a small spark or even a small fire had occurred, it could have caused a sudden explosion or even an explosion. That type of event, even if it did not cause much damage, could have terrified the crew, who would have thought the entire ship was going to blow up. Seized by panic, they could have fled the ship. Interestingly, in the early 2000s, some scientists ran experiments to see what would happen if alcohol vapors caught fire in a small space. Their tests showed that an explosion could occur without the ship catching fire or leaving marks. This could explain why the Mary Celeste was found floating quietly without fire signs, but without its crew. Despite these modern investigations, a major question remains unresolved. If the crew abandoned ship to escape danger, why didn't they return when it was safe? Some people think that the answer could be related to a conflict between the people on board. Could there have been a mutiny? Sailors have rebelled against their captain many times in navigation history, but there isn't much evidence in this case. The ship looked clean and undamaged when discovered. There were no broken objects, blood, or signs of struggle. Even valuables like gold coins remained there. This makes it hard to believe that a robbery or mutiny happened. Pirates have been mentioned in some theories, but that idea doesn't quite fit either. Pirates usually steal valuables, but nothing was taken from the Mary Celeste. The cargo and the supplies were intact. In addition, In the 1870s, pirate attacks were rare in the Atlantic Ocean. Strict laws and better patrols had almost eradicated them completely. If pirates attacked, they probably would have taken something or left a mess behind. Then there are the far-fetched and spooky theories, too. Some say that aliens could have taken the crew, or that something supernatural happened, such as a curse or ghostly presence that drove the sailors crazy or scared them to death. Most historians do not believe in these ideas, but they have become an important part of the legend of the Mary Celeste. Stories like these fuel the imagination of authors, filmmakers, and mystery lovers worldwide. Some even try to relate the ship to the Bermuda Triangle, even though the Mary Celeste was far from that area when discovered. One of the most credible ideas is that the crew abandoned ship due to several small problems that, together, seemed like an emergency endangering their lives. For example, perhaps the ship's pump wasn't working properly and the crew thought it was filling with water. If that happened, along with bad weather and the strong smell of alcohol, the captain might have thought the ship was going to sink or explode and perhaps decided the best option was to get everyone in a lifeboats and wait nearby until things calmed down. But the lifeboat was never found at all. That suggests the crew abandoned ship but never returned to it. They may have been swept away by strong ocean currents, capsized in a storm, or died from cold exposure and lack of water. If this is what really happened, then the decision to abandon ship was a tragic mistake, made out of fear and confusion. Since the Mary Celeste was discovered adrift in December 1872, many experts have studied it carefully since then. Historians have examined the ship's old designs, cargo records, and weather reports of the time. Forensic scientists have examined the objects left on board. Each new clue adds a piece to the puzzle, but the main mystery still remains. Why did the crew abandon a ship that was still in good condition and clearly could still sail well? Not even a Mary Celeste's life after the event was peaceful. After being rescued, it was put back into service with new owners again. But the ship was said to be cursed, though. In the year 1885, it was intentionally sunk near Haiti in an insurance scam, which put a sad end to its turbulent history. Even so, the Mary Celeste story lives on still. It has inspired countless books, movies, and many debates. Its strange mix of facts and unanswered questions continues to fascinate people around the world even today. The ship has become more than just a ghost ship. It is a symbol of how the sea can humble and disconcert us. Despite all our modern tools and knowledge, the ocean continues to hide secrets that we may never fully understand. Was it a natural disaster, a mistake born of fear, or something beyond our understanding? Like the missing crew, the real answer is lost in the depths. It was 1918 and the USS Cyclops, a huge warship, made its usual journey through the Atlantic. Traveling on board were over 300 men and thousands of tons of cargo. This sturdy ship was built to withstand the harsh conditions of war. However, somewhere between Barbados and Baltimore, the Cyclops disappeared without any trace. There were no distress signals, no wreckage, and no survivors. It was as if the ocean had completely swallowed the ship. At the start of the 20th century, the United States Navy was becoming more powerful, with ambitions of extending its reach worldwide. It was clear that naval dominance would depend not only on warships, but also on the crucial support systems that kept them running. Enter the USS Cyclops, a giant of its time and an essential part of the Navy's growing fleet. Launched in 1910, the Cyclops was one of 4 Proteus-class ships designed to transport large quantities of coal, the fuel that powered warships during the steam era. With an impressive length of 542 feet and a beam of 65 feet, the Cyclops was a true powerhouse capable of carrying more than 12,000 tons of coal at a time. Its enormous size and cargo capacity made it a marvel of engineering and an indispensable tool for the Navy, which depended on coal to fuel its operations at sea. But the Cyclops was not only big. It was also built with state-of-the-art design features. Designed to last, the ship's steel hull and watertight compartments were made to withstand even the roughest seas. Inside, the ship's holds were carefully organized to maximize the efficiency of loading and unloading cargo. Although the Cyclops was not built for speed, With a top speed of only 15 knots, its resistance and reliability made it ideal for long journeys. When World War I began in 1914, coal was no longer the Navy's only fuel priority. Oil was rapidly becoming the preferred fuel for warships, diminishing the importance of coal. However, this did not render the Cyclops obsolete. On the contrary, its function adapted. It became a versatile ship, carrying not only coal, but also ammunition, supplies, and even troops when needed. In this new role, the Cyclops became a reliable workhorse of the fleet, always ready to deliver essential resources wherever needed. In January of 1918, the USS Cyclops received a new mission. It was ordered to transport a large amount of manganese ore, specifically 10,800 tons, from Brazil to the United States. Manganese was crucial to the war effort, as it was needed to reinforce the steel used to make weapons and machinery. The Cyclops was to begin its journey in Rio de Janeiro, stop in Salvador, Brazil, and then continue north to Baltimore, Maryland. The ship sailed from Rio de Janeiro without problem and arrived in Salvador in mid-February. After loading all of its cargo, it departed on the long journey north. Its route would take it through the Caribbean, a region known for its calm seas and predictable climate. It was supposed to be a normal trip, one of many that the Cyclops had made before. On March 3, 1918, the ship made a scheduled stop in Barbados to refuel. It was also an opportunity for its captain, Lieutenant Commander George Wallally, to file a report. Everything seemed normal. The Cyclops was in good condition, and there were no signs of problems. The ship sailed from Barbados on March 4th bound for Baltimore, where it was expected to arrive later that month. But somewhere between Barbados and Baltimore, the Cyclops vanished. No distress signal was sent, no calls for help were made, and no trace of it was left. The huge ship, with its 309 passengers, crew, and valuable cargo, seemed to vanish as if swallowed by the sea. The disappearance of a USS Cyclops shocked the United States Navy and the entire nation. It was not just any ship. It was a large military vessel built to withstand the harsh conditions of the ocean and crewed by experienced sailors. How could such a ship disappear without leaving any clue? The mystery immediately became the focus of intense naval investigations. But without evidence, everyone was baffled and searched for answers. As soon as the ship did not arrive in Baltimore, the search efforts began. Ships and airplanes traveled thousands of square kilometers of ocean, following the predicted route of the Cyclops. The ports of the East Coast, the Caribbean, and South America were alerted so that they were attentive to any remains of the shipwreck or survivors. The radio stations were monitored, a relatively new technology at that time, in case any signal was received but nothing was detected. There were no lifeboats, remains, or oil stains. There was not even a trace of Cyclops. The disappearance of the ship left everyone disconcerted. Normally, even in the worst shipwrecks, some remains, like planks, lifeboats, or cargo, arrived on the coast. But with the Cyclops, the ocean remained strangely silent. It was as if the ship had been completely swallowed by the vast Atlantic. What made the situation even more disturbing was that the Cyclops never sent a distress signal. Although in 1918 the wireless communications were still in an incipient phase, the ship was equipped with a functioning radio and a qualified operator. If there had been time to send a distress call, why didn't they? This posed a disturbing question. Had something so sudden occurred on the ship that the crew had no time to react? More than 100 years have passed since the disappearance of the USS Cyclops, but the mystery remains as intriguing as ever. With the new technological advances and the renewed interest for the maritime history, the current investigators are revising the case with the hope of discovering new proofs or developing new theories that can finally explain what happened to the ship. One of the most recent technological advances that has awakened a new interest in the mystery of the Cyclops is the use of deep water exploration tools. These tools include remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and sophisticated sonar mapping systems. These advances have allowed investigators to explore parts of the ocean that were previously inaccessible. Although confirmed remains of the Cyclops have not been found, These technologies have helped to discover dozens of unknown shipwrecks in the same zone, which demonstrates that even the biggest ships can remain hidden in the depths of the ocean. Some modern theories about the Cyclops center on possible structural problems with the ship itself. The historical records suggest that the ship's design could have made it unstable when transporting heavy loads. The Cyclops transported manganese, which was very heavy and prone to shifting if not secured correctly. Even a slight displacement of the cargo could have destabilized the ship, causing it to capsize rapidly. This theory helps explain the absence of a distress signal. If the ship had capsized, overturned, or split, the crew would have had no time to react. Another line of investigation centers on Captain George Wallally, whose leadership has always been a subject of debate. The erratic behavior and the questionable decisions of Wallally during previous trips have taken some to ask themselves if he could have had something to do in the disappearance of the Cyclops. Some witnesses from his previous trips described him as harsh and unpredictable, and rumors about his German ancestry aroused suspicions in an era of Great War paranoia. However, there is no solid proof suggesting that Worley deliberately sabotaged the ship or acted maliciously. More recently, the study of the records of the epic have revived the theory that the action of the enemy could have been responsible for the disappearance of the Cyclops. During the First World War, German submarines operated widely in the Atlantic, attacking Allied ships. Although there are no confirmed reports that relate a submarine with the Cyclops, it is possible that the disappearance of the ship was the result of an unregistered attack. The German naval records of that time are incomplete, which leaves room for speculation. However, the lack of remains or survivors makes this theory less probable. Normally, even after a U-boat attack, some trace of the ship would be expected to appear. The theory of the Bermuda Triangle, although often dismissed by scientists, continues to capture the public's imagination. The Cyclops disappeared in an area known for its mysterious disappearances, and some have speculated that the ship was a victim of a strange phenomenon unique to that region. Several natural explanations have been suggested, from methane hydrate eruptions to giant waves and magnetic anomalies. Although the majority of these ideas continue without being demonstrated, they add an additional layer of mystery to the history of the Cyclops. One of the most intriguing modern theories is that the Cyclops sank due to a combination of factors. A small structural failure, aggravated by its heavy cargo and possibly by the bad state of the sea, could have unleashed a series of events that provoked its rapid sinking. This theory suggests that the ship's disappearance may not have been caused by a single disaster, but by a series of unfortunate circumstances combined. The mystery of the Cyclops has also inspired efforts to locate its remains. Organizations specializing in maritime archaeology and submarine exploration have proposed specific searches along the ship's probable route using the latest mapping technology. However, the immensity of the search area and the depth of the Atlantic Ocean pose enormous challenges. Despite these difficulties, investigators continue to hope that someday the mystery of the Cyclops will be solved. Until then, the USS Cyclops remains a disturbing reminder of the ocean's capacity to hide its secrets. Whether the ship lies intact at the bottom of the sea or was shattered by the elements, its history continues to inspire curiosity and speculation. For now, we are left with questions, theories, and the enduring fascination of one of history's greatest maritime mysteries. Another ship, the Warada, often called the Titanic of the Southern Hemisphere, mysteriously disappeared off the coast of South Africa. Unlike the Cyclops, the Warada was a luxurious passenger ship designed for comfort and elegance. It was considered a symbol of innovation and progress, a vessel built to dominate the seas. However, in the year 199, during its second voyage, the War disappeared without a trace, taking with it 211 passengers and crew. What happened to the Warada? Was it a design flaw, a violent storm, or was something darker? Like the Cyclops, the Warada left no wreckage, survivors, or clear answers. Let's explore the history of the Warada, a ship that set sail with great promise, but was never seen again. At the beginning of the 20th century, Australia was optimistic. The economy grew strongly. New trade routes opened, and demand for luxury travel increased. This changing landscape connected Australia to the rest of the world in new ways. Ships were no longer just a means for transporting goods. They were symbols of progress, representing pride and modern achievements, uniting continents, and offering new opportunities to people. One of the brightest stars of this era was the Waratah, a ship built to reflect the ambition and elegance of its time. It was built in 1908 by the Blue Anchor Line and was a marvel of Edwardian engineering. With 465 feet in length and a weight of over 9,000 tons, the Waratah was the largest and most advanced vessel ever commissioned by the company. Its design achieved a balance of luxury and practicality. On deck, first-class passengers enjoyed a level of luxury that rivaled the best ocean liners of that time. Ornamented dining rooms, luxurious lounges, and modern cabins catered to the wealthy elite, while second-class accommodations offered comfortable spaces for less affluent travelers. But the Waratah was not just any passenger ship. Below deck, its enormous holds were designed to transport Australia's most valuable exports: wool, meat, and precious metals, making it an essential link in the country's trade network with Europe. Its combination of grandeur and utility earned it the nickname Titanic of the Southern Hemisphere, a vessel that symbolized the height of Edwardian craftsmanship. Its inaugural voyage from London to Sydney in late 1908 was successful. Passengers delighted in its luxurious interiors and smooth sailing. The Blue Anchor Line had every reason to celebrate its flagship, which quickly became popular with travelers and merchants alike. In July 1909, the Waratah was ready for its second voyage. It set sail from Sydney with 211 passengers and crew on board. The ship was loaded with goods destined for European markets, and its route included stops in Durban and Cape Town before heading into the Atlantic Ocean. As it sailed through the Indian Ocean, the atmosphere felt optimistic. Passengers enjoyed the ship's amenities and the company of their fellow travelers. However, as the Waratah approached the south coast of Africa, some concerns began to surface. Some passengers reported that the ship seemed unstable in the rough seas, swaying more than usual. Others spoke of an unsettling feeling, a disturbing sensation that they could not explain easily. These warnings were dismissed by the crew then, but would later take on a much more sinister meaning. On July 26, 1909, the Waratah set sail from Durban, bound for Cape Town. This would be its last trip. Everything seemed normal upon the ship's departure. Passengers and crew were eager to reach Cape Town, a key stop on their journey, before continuing north toward London. The weather was benign, the ship was well stocked, and there was no indication of any problems ahead. For those on board, it seemed like another quiet leg of the journey. Around 6 p.m. on July 27th, the Waratah was sighted by the Clan McIntyre, a cargo ship sailing the same route. The two vessels exchanged their usual signals, and the Waratah appeared to be in good condition, sailing at a steady speed along the South African coast. This brief sighting will be the last confirmed sighting of the ship. After that, it disappeared from view, and no one ever saw it again. When the Waratah did not arrive in Cape Town, the initial reaction was cautious. Delays at sea were not uncommon in 1909, especially along the south coast of Africa, where unpredictable weather and strong currents posed a constant challenge to sailors. However, as days turned into weeks without news of the ship, concern turned into alarm. Something had gone terribly wrong indeed. The Blue Anchor Line, owner of the Waratah, quickly launched a search operation. The ships of its fleet and other vessels operating in the area were redirected to search the waters between Durban and Cape Town. The search covered hundreds of kilometers of treacherous coastline, focusing on the area where the McIntyre clan had last seen the Waratah. The crews were ordered to search for remains, lifeboats, or survivors, but they found nothing. The task was hampered by the Agulhas Current, one of the strongest currents in the world. It flows south along the east coast of Africa and meets the cold waters of the Antarctic Circumpolar Current, creating a very unstable oceanic zone. Shipwrecks in this area often leave few traces, as the remains are swept away or dragged into the depths of the submarine canyons. In late August 1909, the hope of finding survivors was fading. Despite the lack of evidence, rumors began spreading. Some claimed to have seen strange lights at sea, suggesting that the Warada might still be afloat, adrift with its passengers and crew alive but stranded. Others speculated that the ship had run aground on a reef or hidden island, waiting to be rescued. Theories ranged from the plausible to the fantastic, but none offered real answers. In September, the Blue Anchor Line organized a second search, this time with the steamship Wakefield. The Wakefield retraced the route of the Warada, stopping at all known dangerous points and looking for any sign of the missing ship. Once again, the search proved to be unsuccessful. No remains, no corpses, no clues were found. The Warada had completely disappeared, as if the ocean had swallowed a whole. Over the years, several more attempts have been made to locate the ship. Modern technologies, such as sonar mapping and underwater exploration, have been used to scan the seabed off the coast of South Africa. However, the difficult conditions in the region have greatly hampered these searches. The waters near the Agulhas Bank are full of wrecks, some of them hundreds of years old, making it difficult to distinguish the Warada from other lost ships. To date, the Warada has never been found. Its disappearance remains one of the most enduring mysteries in maritime history, a haunting reminder of how vast and unpredictable the ocean can be. The mystery of the Warada has captivated historians, maritime experts, and enthusiasts for more than a century. With no wreckage or survivors to provide answers, the fate of the ship has given rise to countless theories. Some plausible, others frankly fantastic. One of the most accepted explanations is that the Warada had serious design problems. Reports from its first voyage in 1908 described the ship as unstable and prone to capsizing in rough seas. Passengers and crew members noted that the ship seemed too top-heavy, with a high center of gravity that made it more prone to capsizing. The Warada was designed ambitiously, trying to combine luxury accommodations with large cargo holds. Some experts believe that this combination made the ship unstable, especially when heavily loaded. On its last voyage, the Warada was carrying a large amount of cargo, including tallow, coal, and heavy machinery. If this cargo shifted during bad weather, it could have caused the ship to capsize quickly, leaving no time to send a distress signal or evacuate. The waters off the south coast of Africa are known to be unpredictable. The Agulhas Current, along with strong winds and storms, can create huge rogue waves. Walls of water up to 30 meters high that appear suddenly and without warning. These waves are so powerful that they can sink even the most resistant ships. And the Warada would have been especially vulnerable if it was already unstable. A rogue wave could have hit the Waratah with great force, overwhelming it and dragging it to the bottom of the ocean before the crew could do anything to stop it. This idea is supported by reports from other ships that faced severe conditions in the same area and around the same time as the disappearance of the Warada. Although the captain of the Warada, Joshua Eller, was an experienced sailor, human error cannot be completely ruled out. Navigating the dangerous waters of South Africa requires constant attention, and even a small mistake could have led to catastrophe. If the Warada got too close to the coast or encountered an unknown hazard, it could have run aground or been shipwrecked. Some stories suggest that the captain may have been overconfident in the ship's capabilities, ignoring concerns about its stability. Others point out that poor communication or faulty equipment could have played a role in the tragedy. Although less likely, some have suggested the possibility of sabotage or foul play. The Warada was carrying a valuable cargo, including precious metals, which could have made a target for pirates. However, there is no evidence to support this idea, and piracy was rare in that region at that time. The disappearance of the Warada has given rise to even more far-fetched theories, such as the idea that the ship was swallowed by a supernatural force or disappeared into another dimension. Some have linked the fate of the ship to stories about the Bermuda Triangle, even though the ship disappeared thousands of kilometers away. These theories, although lacking scientific evidence, show the fascination that maritime mysteries still exert and the human need to explain the unexplainable. The simplest explanation is that the Warada sank to the ocean floor, and its remains have not been found because the area is very difficult to track. The Agulhas Bank is a dangerous area with strong currents, deep canyons, and a history of shipwrecks. It is possible that the Warada lies in one of these canyons, hidden from view, waiting to be discovered. Despite numerous searches and many theories, no one knows for sure what happened to the Warada. Its disappearance is a stark reminder of the ocean's power to keep its secrets. Even in an era of advanced technology, for the families of the 2011 people who are on board, the lack of answers is a disturbing legacy. The mystery of the Warada's fate remains unresolved more than a century later. The story of the Warada is not only about what might have happened to the ship, but also about what we have learned since then. It has changed the way we think about ship design and continues to drive researchers to seek answers in the sea's depths. Even then, when the Warada disappeared, it forced people to ask difficult questions about how ships are built. In those days, engineers were pushing the limits, designing and building larger, more ambitious ships that could achieve more than ever. But sometimes ambition can outpace caution. The Warada was designed to combine luxury with practicality, serving as both a passenger and a cargo ship. However, that balance may have been its undoing. Reports from its first trip already pointed to problems. People said that the ship seemed to lean too much in rough seas and that it felt unstable, as if it was too heavy. After its disappearance, these early concerns became a warning about what not to do when designing ships. Engineers learned the hard way and began to focus much more on the importance of weight distribution and stability, lessons that remain crucial today. The tragedy of the Warada also revealed how dangerous it is to ignore early warning signs or take shortcuts. It's one thing to hear that a boat doesn't feel quite right in the water, but it's quite another to ignore those concerns and send it back out into an unpredictable sea. The story of the Warada serves as a clear reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. The Warada has earned a place in the history books of maritime mysteries and is often mentioned alongside other famous disappearances, such as the Mary Celeste and the Flying Dutchman. What makes its story so fascinating is the total lack of evidence. There are no remains, no lifeboats, nothing. It's as if it's simply vanished. That kind of mystery captivates the imagination like few other stories can. Over the years, its disappearance has inspired many books, documentaries, and investigations. With each passing decade, interest in its story grows. Its story is not limited to a ship. It is a reminder of how vast and unpredictable the ocean is. Even in the modern era, with all our technology, the sea still keeps its secrets. The search for the Warada has not ceased, and current technology provides researchers with tools that would have been unimaginable in the year 199. We now have advanced sonar systems, remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, and even underwater drones that can map the ocean floor with incredible precision. These tools have already discovered shipwrecks that were thought to be lost forever. Therefore, there is hope that the Warada may also be found one day. One of the most promising techniques is sonar mapping. By scanning the seabed near the Agulhas Bank, the last place the Warada was seen, researchers could detect shapes or anomalies that could indicate the presence of a shipwreck. The waters off South Africa are very difficult to explore due to strong currents and deep underwater canyons. But sonar can overcome those challenges. If a promising target is identified, ROVs can be sent to investigate. These underwater robots can capture high-definition images and even recover artifacts, giving researchers a better view of what might be down there. The Warada could still be intact on the seabed, waiting to be found. New technologies, such as machine learning and artificial intelligence, AI, are also changing how searches are conducted. These tools can analyze large amounts of sonar data and detect patterns that could indicate the presence of a shipwreck. Instead of searching blindly, researchers can focus on areas that seem most promising. However, even with all these technological advances, finding the Warada is no easy task. The Agulhas Current is one of the strongest in the world, capable of dragging shipwreck, remains kilometers away from the original sinking site. The seabed in that area is also full of other shipwreck remains, some of which have been there for centuries, making it difficult to distinguish which ship is which. Funding is another challenge. Searches in deep waters are expensive, and without solid clues, it can be hard to convince governments or private organizations to invest in such an uncertain venture. Despite these obstacles, the Warada remains a tempting target for researchers. What makes people return to its history is more than just mystery. It is the human element. The 21 people on board were not only passengers or crew, but families, workers, and travelers, each with their own stories and dreams. Its disappearance is a stark reminder of the ocean's implacable nature and how little we control its immense power. Its history also touches something universal: our fascination with the unknown. How could such a large ship disappear? What happened in its last moments? These questions haunt maritime historians and resonate with anyone who has ever wondered about the mysteries that lie beneath the sea. Although we still do not have the answers, the search for the Warada continues. Each new technology brings us closer to solving the enigma. Perhaps someday we will finally discover the truth about what happened to the Titanic of the Southern Hemisphere. Until then, the Warada will remain a symbol of the ocean's ability to keep its secrets hidden. In the depths of the vast and dark parts of the ocean, so deep that sunlight never reaches and the water pressure is so strong that it can crush a human being in seconds, something strange is making noise. They are not the usual sounds we know, such as the songs of whales or the clicks dolphins used to see underwater. This sound is something completely different, something that scientists still don't fully understand. Of all the mysterious noises recorded in the depths of the sea, one has stood out and caught the attention of researchers and curious people around the world. This strange noise has been given a disturbing name: Julia. Julia was first heard in 1999 thanks to underwater microphones called hydrophones. These special devices were installed long ago, during the Cold War, to secretly listen for Soviet submarines. The hydrophones were part of a listening system that extended through the center of the Pacific Ocean. When the sound known as Julia was recorded, it was captured from the depths of the ocean. What made it especially interesting was not only that it was loud. It was very, very loud. Loud enough to be heard by microphones located hundreds of kilometers away, but also that it sounded very different. The noise began with a low tone and quickly rose to a higher one, creating a sound pattern that scientists call upsweep. For us humans, if it is accelerated many times faster than it was originally heard, it sounds like a ghostly moan or a long, haunting scream that goes up in pitch before slowly fading. Probably, this spooky quality of the sound is the reason someone gave it the name Julia. Nobody knows for sure where that name comes from. Some think that it could have been named in honor of a scientist's wife or girlfriend, while others believe that it could be related to the month of July, although official records show that it was actually heard in March. What makes Julia and other unexplained sound from the seabed so mysterious is that no one knows exactly what caused them. The ocean is full of noises from many sources: animals such as whales and fish, natural phenomena such as underwater earthquakes or volcanoes, and even noises from human activities like ships, oil drilling, and military operations. But Julia does not perfectly match any of these common sound patterns. The fact that Julia was so loud makes it even more puzzling, so that the hydrophones spread over a great distance were able to capture it. Whatever made that noise must have been extremely powerful, or the sound was able to travel an unusually long distance through water. Sound can travel much farther through water than through air, especially in certain parts of the ocean where temperature and pressure allow sound to travel more easily and further. Therefore, it is possible that a very loud sound can be heard over great distances at sea. Scientists have raised several hypotheses to explain what Julia could be. Some are simple and logical, while others are more imaginative. One of the most common explanations is that it could have been caused by a huge iceberg grazing the ocean floor. When a huge piece of ice hits the seabed, it can produce deep, rumbling noises. The rising pitch of the sound could come from the ice as it breaks or cracks when hitting the bottom. Another possible explanation for the mystery of Julia has to do with underwater volcanic activity. The Pacific Ocean, especially along the Ring of Fire, is home to many underwater volcanoes, several of which are active. Eruptions, the movement of magma, or even the violent clash between hot magma and cold seawater could create sounds similar to those of Julia. However, the problem with this theory is that most of the volcanic sounds recorded so far do not match the specific pattern of frequency changes that Julia produces. Seismic events, such as underwater earthquakes, have also been suggested as possible sources for the sound. The displacement of tectonic plates under the ocean floor can generate significant acoustic energy. Depending on the type of fault movement and the geological characteristics that surround it, these events could create sounds with different frequencies. However, seismic events usually create sudden explosive sounds, unlike the gradual ascending tone of Julia. Some researchers have even proposed that Julia could be biological, possibly the song of an unknown marine creature. Oceans are among the least explored places on Earth, and scientists estimate we have discovered less than 1% of all marine species. The deep ocean, in particular, continues to reveal new discoveries each time it is explored. Could it be that Julia is the sound of a huge, unknown creature that lives in the depths? Although this may seem like something out of a science fiction movie, it should be noted that the blue whale, the largest animal that has ever existed on Earth, is a marine creature. Their vocalizations can travel for hundreds of kilometers underwater. Other whale species are known to produce complex songs and calls that change in pattern and frequency. However, marine biologists point out that Julia does not match any known whale species, and the sound intensity would suggest a creature larger than even the blue whale, which seems unlikely given our increasingly exhaustive studies of large marine life. A twist on the biological theory suggests that Julia might not be the voice of a single animal, but the combined sound of a large group of creatures vocalizing together. It is possible that a hitherto unknown squid or fish species is emitting this sound during mass spawning or migration. Many marine species are known to gather in large groups for these purposes, and this collective behavior can create unique acoustic patterns that do not correspond to sounds emitted by individual animals. Some more unusual explanations have also been proposed, although these ideas are outside conventional science. Some have suggested that Julia could be the result of an unknown technology in the depths of the ocean. This could involve secret military experiments or, in the most speculative scenarios, technology of extraterrestrial origin. Although there is no credible evidence to support these ideas, they highlight how mysterious phenomena can give rise to imaginative explanations when conventional ones seem insufficient. The mystery of Julia is even more intriguing due to the fact that it is not an isolated phenomenon. Since the first recording in 1999, similar sounds have been detected on several occasions. Although they do not appear regularly, this irregular pattern complicates the search for an explanation, as it suggests that the source is neither random nor predictably cyclical. The enigma of Julia is further complicated by the enormous difficulties involved in exploring ocean depths. The areas where these sounds have been detected are often located in remote regions of the ocean, far from land, and in waters that can reach thousands of meters deep. Conducting expeditions to these places is incredibly expensive and poses a significant logistical challenge. Special vessels and equipment capable of withstanding intense pressure are needed, and these missions are also very time-consuming. As a result, direct investigation of the possible sources for these sounds has been limited. One challenge in investigating strange ocean sounds is how sound propagates through water. Unlike air, where sound waves move in simple trajectories, ocean acoustics are influenced by many complex factors. These include water temperature, salinity, pressure, and the various layers and currents of the ocean. These elements can cause sound waves to curve, bounce, or change shape, making it difficult to determine exactly where sound is coming from, even when using multiple recording stations. The way scientists have approached the mystery of Julia shows the caution with which they approach unexplained phenomena. Instead of rushing into far-fetched or dramatic explanations, oceanographers, marine biologists, and acoustics experts have taken their time to study the qualities of the sound. They have compared it to known sounds and looked for natural causes that could create similar patterns. Although this careful approach may not be as exciting as other theories, it is the most reliable way to finally solve the enigma. Julia is not the only mysterious sound that has been recorded in the world's oceans. In 1997, no hydrophone of the AA captured another puzzling sound called bloop. This sound was a powerful, very low-frequency noise that rapidly increased in pitch, similar to Julia's, but with its own characteristics. At first, the bloop aroused much curiosity because its sound pattern seemed to resemble that of a living being, one that would have to be much larger than the largest known animal, the blue whale. After several years of research, scientists concluded that the bloop was probably the result of a huge ice calving event in which a giant piece of ice from Antarctica broke off from a glacier or ice shelf. This theory was supported by the sound's location, which was traced to an area near Antarctica, known for these ice breakup events. The solution to the mystery of the bloop gives hope that Julia may also have a natural explanation, although we have not yet found it. Another famous ocean sound known as the slowdown was recorded in 1997, just months before the bloop. As its name suggests, the slowdown lasted about 7 minutes, gradually decreasing in frequency, the opposite of Julia's ascending sound. Like Julia, the slowdown has not been fully explained, but many scientists believe it could be related to ice events. Perhaps the most persistent inexplicable sound is the so-called upsweep. First detected in 1991, this sound still appears occasionally. It consists of a series of narrow ascending sounds, each several seconds long. What makes the upsweep particularly intriguing is its seasonal pattern. The sound is more common during spring and autumn, which has led some researchers to think that it could be related to the ocean's natural heating and cooling cycles. These changes could involve moving underwater structures or affecting how sound behaves in waters of different temperatures. The fact that many of these unexplained sounds are found in the Pacific Ocean, especially near the equator and the Southern Ocean, suggests that there may be special geological or oceanographic conditions in these areas that make them more likely to produce unusual sounds. The Pacific's Ring of Fire, with its intense volcanic and seismic activity, creates a unique underwater environment, which could produce sounds unlike those in other parts of the ocean. In recent years, new technologies have improved how scientists monitor underwater sounds. The most advanced hydrophones, placed in greater numbers and spread over wider areas, allow more accurate identification and triangulation of sound sources. These advances provide scientists with better tools to investigate Julia and other mysterious ocean noises. Machine learning algorithms are now used to analyze enormous amounts of ocean sound data, helping researchers categorize and compare acoustic patterns that might be missed by humans. These algorithms could uncover hidden patterns in ocean sounds. Autonomous underwater vehicles, equipped with special sound sensors, are also making it easier for scientists to explore areas where unusual sounds have been detected. These vehicles can move and collect data in places that traditional underwater microphones, known as hydrophones, cannot reach. They can be programmed to follow specific search routes or focus on sounds that match certain patterns, essentially acting as underwater acoustic detectives. Another interesting approach is connecting sound data with other ocean measurements, such as water temperature, current patterns, seismic activity, and even biological studies of places and times when a sound like Julia's has been heard. Researchers hope to discover environmental factors that may explain the sound's appearance, which could help locate its origin. The mystery of Julia reminds us how vast and largely unexplored our oceans remain. Despite centuries of navigation and decades of scientific studies, we have only observed in detail less than 5% of the seafloor. The depths of the ocean are one of the last truly unknown frontiers of Earth, where new species, geological features, and natural phenomena are regularly discovered. This sense of unfamiliarity extends to the world of sound as well. The ocean is full of a complex mix of noises, many of which we are only just beginning to catalog. Before underwater microphones were used for military and scientific purposes, most of these sounds went unnoticed by humans, as they existed in an acoustic world beyond our ability to detect or understand. What makes Julia especially fascinating is not only that it is an unresolved scientific enigma, but that it touches something deeper inside us. Our curiosity for the unknown, especially when it comes from environments as strange and inaccessible as the ocean depths, is very powerful. There is something captivating about the idea of an unidentified sound resonating in the dark deep. A mysterious call that comes from a place where humans cannot survive. This intrigue with unexplained oceanic sounds has reached popular culture, inspiring films, books, and even music based on recordings like Julia. These creative works often emphasize the disturbing nature of the sounds, playing with our natural fear of the dark and of the unknown. Although these dramatizations are not always scientifically accurate, they show how much these mysteries captivate our imaginations. For scientists, however, Julia is more than just a curiosity. It is an opportunity to expand our knowledge of ocean acoustics and discover new natural phenomena. The study of these sounds pushes researchers to create better monitoring tools, develop more advanced analysis methods, and build better models about how sound behaves in the complex oceanic environment. Understanding Julia and other unexplained sounds also has practical value. The ocean plays an increasingly important role in human activities, from maritime transport and resource extraction to military operations and scientific research. Unexplained sounds could interfere with technologies such as sonar systems, underwater communications, and other equipment that relies on predictable sound behavior. If researchers manage to identify Julia's origin, they could improve the reliability of these systems. From a conservation standpoint, understanding the acoustic environment of the ocean is fundamental for effective environmental protection. If Julia turned out to have a biological origin, it could reveal new details about marine ecosystems. Even if the sound comes from geological activity, understanding how these noises propagate through the ocean could help us better monitor the health of marine environments and the effects of human actions on them. As research continues, it is possible that the mystery of Julia will eventually be solved, just like other phenomena, such as the bloop, which were once inexplicable but are now understood. However, it is also possible that some ocean sounds will remain a mystery forever. Their sources are too distant, too rare, or too complex for our current technology to discover. Either outcome reflects the nature of scientific exploration, a continuous journey of questioning, investigation, and gradual expansion of the limits of human knowledge. In this sense, Julia represents more than just a strange sound. It symbolizes humanity's ongoing effort to understand the world, especially its most mysterious and remote corners. For now, Julia remains an unidentified sound, one of many cataloged by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and other oceanographic organizations. The recordings of Julia continue to be studied, compared with new data, and analyzed with increasingly advanced methods. Somewhere in this meticulous scientific process, or perhaps in a future mission to place sensors closer to the sound source, lies the key to finally understanding what causes this disturbing call from the depths. Until then, Julia will continue to resonate both in the physical ocean and in humanity's collective curiosity, reminding us that, even in the age of satellite maps and global communication, the natural world still holds secrets to be discovered. As we peer into the immensity of the ocean and listen to its strange and inexplicable voices, we are not only confronted with the limits of our knowledge, but also with the infinite potential for discovery that has always drawn human beings to explore the unknown. Perhaps most strikingly, Julia reminds us that some of the greatest mysteries do not come from what we can see, but from what we hear. The sounds that travel through the darkness contain information about events and processes hidden from our sight. In the world of ocean acoustics, We are like ancient astronomers trying to understand distant phenomena not through direct observation, but by carefully studying the signals that reach us across vast distances. Just as astronomy has shown us a far stranger and more wonderful universe than our ancestors ever imagined, the study of oceanic sounds could one day reveal parts of our planet that we had never dreamed of. In the depths of the frigid Antarctic waters, where temperatures drop far below 0 degrees Celsius and huge icebergs cast long shadows into the depths, sailors and scientists have reported something extraordinary. A creature so strange and disturbing that it defies everything we thought we knew about life in the most remote waters of Earth. They call it Ninjin, a Japanese word that means human. The name is strangely appropriate, as those who claim to have seen it describe a being that is anything but ordinary. This creature is huge, pale, and disturbingly humanoid. A ghostly giant that seems to watch from the cold, dark depths surrounding Antarctica. The first sightings of the Ningon began to emerge in the early 2000s, mainly among Japanese fishing crews working in Antarctic waters. These were experienced sailors, men and women who had spent their entire lives at sea and were familiar with the usual marine fauna: whales, sharks, rays, and other large marine creatures. But what they described was unlike anything they had seen before. According to their accounts, late at night, when the Antarctic darkness was deepest, they saw huge white shapes moving beneath the surface. The creatures they said they saw were between 20 and 30 meters long and had distinctive features similar to those of human beings. What makes these Ningon sightings so striking is the consistency of the descriptions. Witnesses described the creature as a being with an almost human face, with clearly visible eyes and mouth. Its body is smooth and white, much like the skin of a beluga whale, but with appendages that resemble human arms. In some accounts, the Ningon even has hands with 5 fingers. Some reports mention webbed fingers, while others speak of a lower body similar to that of a mermaid that ends in a large tail like that of a whale. The overall impression is that of a creature caught between two worlds, neither fully human nor fully fish, but a strange hybrid of both. Of course, skeptics offer many alternative explanations. Antarctic waters are home to many large marine creatures, including various species of whales. A pale beluga whale, an albino southern right whale, or even an unusually shaped iceberg could easily be mistaken for something more unusual, especially in the low visibility common in Antarctica. The exploration of the deep sea is very difficult, and light can deceive the human eye. The mind often fills in gaps, imagining shapes that do not actually exist. There is also the phenomenon of pareidolia, which is the human tendency to see faces and human features in random patterns. We are naturally programmed to recognize human forms, so we often see faces in the clouds or the man in the moon. When faced with an unknown marine creature in the dim light, it is easy for the human mind to interpret vague features as something familiar, such as a humanoid shape. However, those who believe in the Ningon are not easily convinced by these explanations. They point to the consistency of the descriptions, the credibility of the witnesses, and the fact that these sightings come from multiple independent sources. They also emphasize that the depths of the ocean remain one of the least explored parts of our planet, where new species are discovered regularly. If creatures like the giant squid, once thought to be pure myth, were able to remain elusive to scientists until only a few years ago, what else could be lurking in the vast, dark waters of Earth? Some proponents of the Ningon theory go even further and relate it to other stories of humanoid marine creatures from folklore around the world. Almost all coastal cultures have legends about mermaids or sea gods, from the Greek sirens to the Japanese kappa or the Inuit Kalapalikos. Could these widespread myths be based on real sightings of creatures like the Ningon? It is an intriguing, albeit speculative idea. Others argue that the hostile and isolated environment of the Antarctic Ocean could be the perfect setting for a totally unique life formed to evolve, unlike anything we have seen before. For about 30 million years, the waters surrounding Antarctica have been separated from the rest of the world by the Antarctic Circumpolar Current. This has created a unique and isolated environment in which life could have evolved in ways we cannot imagine. These icy seas are known for their high oxygen levels and nutrient richness, which could support larger creatures than we might find elsewhere on Earth. Recently, scientists have discovered that there may be more than 200 species of fish known as cryopelagic fish, specially adapted to live their entire lives in the narrow space between the sea ice and the ocean surface. If these unique environments can support entire communities of unknown creatures, who knows what other paths of evolution could have developed in the depths of the ice? One of the most intriguing parts of this mystery is the creature called Ningon. Some people claim to have seen or even photographed the Ningon, which is described as a large humanoid figure. Some blurry images of long white shapes in dark waters have appeared on the internet. But critics argue that these images could be of known animals or even digitally altered. In today's world, where it is so easy to edit photos, it is difficult to trust what we see. Despite the rise of cameras and new technologies, no clear and irrefutable image of the Ningon has appeared. Even without solid evidence, the Ningon has become a legend on the internet. It has been debated in online forums, featured in YouTube videos, and included on cryptozoology websites. It has even made its way into manga and anime, becoming part of modern folklore. In Japan, where the Ningon myth began, it is often talked about along with other mysterious creatures such as Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. These are animals that are also part of the national mysteries and are considered cryptozoos, creatures that are believed to exist but whose existence has not been demonstrated. But what would it mean if the Ningon were real? Finding a large, intelligent humanoid species in the ocean would change everything about evolution and biology. Questions would be opened about convergent evolution, which is when different species develop similar traits because they face similar challenges in their environment. Could the seabed somehow favor humanoid trait development? Although it seems unlikely according to what we know about biology, our knowledge of life in the deep sea remains limited. There are also some environmental concerns. If such a large species exists, why are they so rare? Could it be on the verge of extinction because its habitat is threatened by factors such as overfishing, climate change, or human activities? The warming of Antarctic waters and changes in sea ice patterns could be putting pressure on all species that live there, including those we have not yet discovered. For now, the Ningon remains firmly in the realm of cryptozoology, not in science. No one has ever captured one. No DNA samples have been collected, and no studies have been published confirming its existence. Even so, the legend persists, keeping alive the possibility, however remote, that something extraordinary may be swimming in the cold waters of Antarctica. Perhaps the true value of the Ningon myth is that it reminds us that there are still places on Earth so remote, so extreme, and so unexplored that they could hide creatures that we have not yet found or understood. In a world where it sometimes seems that we have mapped and studied every corner of the planet, the idea of the Ningon allows us to glimpse the mysteries that still remain to be revealed. Regardless of whether the existence of the Ningon is proven or not, the story reflects our fascination with the depths of the ocean and the unknown creatures that could live there, out of our sight and beyond our understanding. It relates to the ancient fears and curiosities of the human being about the sea. That vast, powerful, mysterious place has always been both a source of life and danger, familiar and strange. From the legendary beasts that appear on ancient maps to the modern mystery of the Ningon, we continue to imagine strange creatures in the depths that reflect our complex relationship with the vast, unexplored waters of the world. The next time you find yourself contemplating the vast ocean, especially in a quiet, remote place far from anyone, take a moment to wonder what might be watching you from beneath the waves. Could it be just the marine creatures we know? Or could something else be down there? Something with intelligent eyes and a face that almost looks human, watches silently from the cold depths of the sea, where very few humans have ever set foot. The legend of the Ningon encourages us to keep that question alive, to accept the idea that there is still room for mystery and wonder in a world that often seems to have no room for the unknown. Emerging from the mysterious depths of World War II, this is the story of ghost submarines. Mysterious, invisible hunters stalked coastal waters, baffled Allied forces, and leave us wondering what happened beneath the waves. World War II was not just a battle on land or in the sky. It also took place in the vast oceans, where the stakes were just as important and the risks just as unpredictable. From the icy waters of the North Atlantic to the warm expanses of the Pacific, submarines played a crucial role in the war. These stealthy and silent hunters lurked beneath the surface, disrupting supply lines, sinking enemy ships, and sometimes even altering the outcome of entire battles. But as this tense submarine war intensified, strange and mysterious stories began to emerge, disturbing as they were. Naval crews, merchant sailors, and officers reported submarine sightings where they should not be. These were not just rumors among sailors. These sightings were carefully recorded, tracked, and sometimes intercepted by Allied forces. However, the responsible vessels seemed to defy logic. The term ghost submarine soon began to spread, especially among the crews who had directly witnessed these mysterious sightings. These were not the usual German U-boats or Japanese I-class submarines. The vessels seemed faster, more agile, and able to disappear without any trace. Sometimes they disappeared from radar screens, moving at speeds that contemporary technology could not explain. Other times, the ships attacked a target, launched depth charges, and found nothing at all. No remains, no oil slicks, no debris at all. It was as if these submarines had simply vanished in the ocean. What added to the mystery was that these sightings were not limited to one location. In the icy waters of the North Atlantic, patrol crews near Iceland and Scotland reported strange sonar contacts that seemed to be playing tricks on them. In the North Sea, cargo ships were followed by dark, silent silhouettes. Even in the warmer waters of the Pacific, U.S. destroyers encountered underwater vessels that moved so fast that they could not be pursued. This was not a series of random events, but a pattern that extended through different theaters of war and over years. For naval commanders, these strange reports raised a chilling question. What were those submarines? Were they new experimental weapons, enemy ships, or something else? And perhaps the most disturbing question, why could they not be captured? One of the first and most disturbing encounters took place in the year 1942 off the coast of Iceland. A British destroyer patrolling the area in search of German submarines detected an unusual object on its sonar. The object was enormous, much larger than any known submarine at that time. It moved with surprising speed and agility, which seemed impossible for something so large. The crew thought they had discovered a new enemy submarine, so they prepared for battle. They launched depth charges, and the explosions shook the icy waters. But then, silence. When the crew scanned the surface, they found nothing. There were no remains, oil slicks, or trace of a submarine. It was as if the submarine had never existed. It was not an isolated case. Around the same time, a Norwegian cargo ship reported that it had been followed for several days by an unknown submarine in the North Sea. The crew observed the submarine emerge at night, staying out of sight but following at a distance. Its presence seemed almost ghostly. When the crew tried to ask for help, they received only static, a trick German submarines used to block communications. But when Allied ships went to investigate, they found no trace of the mysterious ship. It disappeared as suddenly as it appeared. In the Pacific, the encounters grew even stranger. Near the Guadalcanal, in the year 1943, an American destroyer detected with sonar an object that moved quickly under the water. The crew, trained to face Japanese submarines, were surprised by how quickly the target moved and the skill with which it avoided their attacks. They fired torpedoes, but the target seemed to anticipate every movement, dodging every shot. Finally, the object disappeared from their radars, leaving the crew confused. The pattern of these encounters was always the same: an unidentified submarine that behaved in a way that no known ship could match, followed by a sudden and complete disappearance. These events could not be easily dismissed as errors or imagination. The crews were trained to recognize submarines and distinguish real threats from natural phenomena. The precision and consistency of the reports made them impossible to ignore. But some encounters were even stranger. Some sailors described a strange feeling of being watched, even when no submarine was seen. There were reports of disturbing lights that shone dimly underwater before disappearing into the depths. In one case, the hydrophone operator of a ship, whose job was to listen to underwater sounds, reported that he had heard metallic whispers echoing in the water. No one could explain the sound's origin, which increased the mystery. The locations of these encounters were equally intriguing. The North Atlantic was a hot spot, especially in areas known for rough seas and unpredictable climate. The waters off the coast of South Africa near the Agulhas Bank were also the scene of many unexplained events, as were some areas of the Pacific Ocean near Japan and the Philippines. These regions shared something in common. They were vast, isolated, and difficult to patrol, which made them ideal hiding places for anything or anyone trying to avoid being detected. An especially chilling event took place near the Yuan Islands in 1944. A Japanese cargo ship reported that it had been followed for more than 48 hours by an unknown submarine. Unable to get rid of their mysterious pursuer, the crew ended up abandoning the ship for fear of attack. But when Allied forces arrived to investigate, they found the merchant ship adrift, completely intact. There was no trace of the mysterious submarine. It had vanished without a trace. As more strange encounters were reported, more questions arose. If these submarines were new enemy designs, why weren't they used more often? If they were not enemy ships, what were they? And perhaps the most disturbing question of all is, how could something so large and advanced disappear without a trace? Even after the war ended, the mystery persisted, refusing to disappear. With the passage of time, declassified naval records came to light that revealed even more encounters, some of which had been kept in secret to avoid causing panic or exposing the weaknesses of the Navy's defense systems. However, these records did not provide any clear answers. Unlike other war mysteries, which usually point to a single cause, the phantom submarine phenomenon is so strange and varied that it has given rise to many theories. Some of these theories are based on real facts, while others delve into a realm of fantasy. One of the most popular theories is that these mysterious submarines were experimental designs of the enemy, a part of a secret arms race that exceeded the limits of technology. Germany and Japan, in particular, were known to work on advanced submarine prototypes. This electric boat was considered ahead of its time and is often believed to be the model modern submarines were based on. Similarly, Japan's Type 5400 submarines were engineering marvels. These were the largest submarines built during the war and designed to transport and launch aircraft, a concept unknown then. Could some of these advanced submarines have been secretly deployed during the war, operating in waters where they were not expected? It is possible, but even these cutting-edge designs had their limitations. They could not match the speeds or evasive maneuvers described in many of the encounters, which leaves this theory with many unanswered questions. Another plausible theory is that these submarines could have belonged to new neutral nations or rebel operators carrying out secret missions. For example, Sweden had a fleet of submarines during the war, and its position in the Baltic Sea made it a key player in intelligence gathering. Some speculate that neutral countries could have operated submarines in disputed waters, either to spy or to protect their own interests. However, this theory also raises questions. Neutral nations would have been cautious about operating in war zones, as it could jeopardize their neutrality. Furthermore, little evidence suggests that neutral or rebel submarines were capable of the feats described in these encounters. Skeptics argue that many of these sightings could have been caused by misidentifications. War conditions, such as stress, fatigue, and poor visibility, could have led sailors to mistake natural phenomena for enemy submarines. Large schools of fish, underwater volcanic activity, or even drifting debris could have been mistaken for a submarine's movements. The technology of that time also had limitations. Sonar and radar systems were relatively primitive and prone to errors, often producing false positives or failures. Some sonar operators could have picked up reflections from the underwater terrain or noises from marine life, mistaking them for vessels. While this theory could explain some incidents, it does not account for the more detailed accounts of evasive maneuvers, interference signals, and other sophisticated behaviors. These accurate descriptions are difficult to dismiss as simple errors or illusions. Then there are theories that delve into the unknown. Some researchers suggest these submarines could have been part of secret projects so advanced that they remain classified today. Could governments have developed technology during World War II that was decades ahead of its time and kept hidden after the war? It is not impossible. Many Cold War innovations originated in wartime experimental projects, and it is conceivable that some designs were abandoned or too risky to reveal. Some take this theory further and speculate that phantom submarines may not have been human creations. The idea of unidentified submerged objects, USO, which are essentially underwater UFOs, has gained attention recently. Supporters of this idea suggest that the incredible speed, agility, and ability of these ships to disappear quickly could indicate technology far superior to human beings. Although this theory is not widely accepted, it highlights the deep mystery surrounding these strange encounters. Another fascinating possibility is that some of these reports were part of intentional disinformation campaigns during World War II. Psychological warfare was a key tool, and spreading rumors about the enemy's advanced technology could have caused fear and confusion among Allied forces. Some reports may have been exaggerated or even invented for that purpose. However, this theory does not explain the widespread nature of these sightings or the surprising similarity of descriptions from different people. The mystery of the so-called phantom submarines of World War II has had a lasting impact not only on naval history, but also on our understanding of the ocean as a vast, enigmatic frontier. These encounters remind us how little we really know about the depths of the sea and what might be hiding there. Despite decades of technological advances, the oceans continue to hold secrets that escape our understanding. Reports of phantom submarines influenced naval strategies and policies in the war. The fear of encountering unknown or superior technology pushed navies to develop new methods. Much was invested in research on sonars, anti-submarine tactics, and countermeasures. These advances laid the foundation for modern submarine warfare and technologies still used today. The mystery also highlighted challenges that are posed by surveillance of oceans. Even with the sophisticated sonar systems and satellite tracking that we have today, vast expanses of the ocean remain largely unobserved. The idea that something or someone can move undetected in these waters is not only possible, it is probable. In recent years, interest in the mysteries of World War II has been reborn, leading researchers to re-examine the phenomenon of ghost submarines. Declassified military documents, along with advances in sonar and underwater exploration, have provided new data on some of these incidents. However, many remain unresolved. Could ghost submarines have been prototypes that sank or were withdrawn from service before their secrets were discovered? Could they still be at the bottom of the ocean, waiting to be found? These questions continue to fuel investigations and searches, keeping the mystery alive. What makes the story of ghost submarines so fascinating is its universal appeal. It's not just about war or technology. It's about humanity's fascination with the unknown. These submarines are more than a war enigma. They are symbols of the ocean's powerful ability to keep its secrets. From the sailors who once saw shadows under the waves to modern researchers who explore the seabed, the charm of these mysteries remains as strong as ever. As long as the ocean continues to hide its secrets, the story of ghost submarines will remain a disturbing reminder of what we still have to discover. In 2007, a 98M catamaran, known as the CAS-2, was discovered hauntingly abandoned in the crystal-clear waters of the Great Barrier Reef. This mysterious case quickly earned the nickname Mary Celeste of Australia, as the disappearance of the ship's experienced crew baffled researchers and intrigued amateur detectives. How could 3 men disappear without a trace from a stable and well-equipped boat in perfect sailing conditions. What had happened to the crew members? The Kaz-2 was not destined to appear in headlines around the world. It was a modest but reliable catamaran, just under 10 meters, of the type one would expect to see sailing quietly through the stunning turquoise waters of the Australian coast. Built for comfort and ease, it was perfect for leisurely sailing and long coastal voyages. The boat belonged to Derek Batten, 56, who considered it his pride and joy. A vessel designed to explore the stunning coast of Australia, not to become part of one of the country's greatest maritime mysteries. On April 15, 2007, Derek embarked on what was supposed to be the adventure of his life. He was accompanied by his two close friends, Peter and James Tooned, two brothers who shared his passion for the sea. Derek was an experienced sailor, having spent years sailing the waters of Australia. Although the Tunstead brothers were not as experienced, they were no strangers to the ocean. Together, the trio had planned to sail the Kaz-2 from the port of Shaw Haven, in Queensland, to Perth on the west coast. It was going to be a journey through some of the most beautiful, but sometimes also most difficult, waters in the world. Their plan was simple: follow the coast, stop at the ports along the way, and enjoy the views. It was not a race, but the experience, the camaraderie, and the joy of sailing on the open sea. For Derek, Peter, and James, this trip was an opportunity to relax, bond, and enjoy the inspiring beauty of the Great Barrier Reef and beyond. They made sure the boat was well stocked, checked all the equipment, and confirmed that the Kaz-2 was seaworthy for the long journey ahead. On the morning of April 15, 2007, the day dawned clear and bright. With the sun shining, the Kaz-2 set sail from the port of Shaw Haven, with its sails full of wind and the crew very lively. Local witnesses saw the three men on deck, waving as they sailed. The sea was calm, the weather forecast was perfect, and the atmosphere was of excitement and adventure. For those on land, it was just another peaceful day in paradise. However, the sea, as it often does, has the ability to transform paradise into something completely different. As the Kaz-2 disappeared on the horizon, the boat was unknowingly heading towards a journey that would baffle researchers, obsess maritime historians, and leave behind a trail of unanswered questions. 3 days later, on April 18, 2007, a helicopter pilot flying above the Great Barrier Reef spotted the Kaz-2. At first, the boat seemed to be sailing smoothly, with its white sails standing out against the endless blue of the ocean. But upon closer observation, the pilot noticed something strange. The boat was not moving in a constant direction. Instead, it was drifting aimlessly, with its sails billowing in the wind. This unusual sighting was quickly reported, and maritime authorities sent a rescue team to investigate. When a rescue team boarded the Kaz-2, they encountered a scene that was both disturbing and perplexing. The boat was intact. There were no signs of damage or danger. The engine was still running, humming softly as if the crew had just left. The GPS and radio systems aboard worked perfectly, but the most important thing on the boat, the crew, was nowhere to be found. Inside the cabin, everything seemed frozen in time. A half-drunk cup of coffee was on the table, next to a neat stack of folded clothes. There was an open laptop, its screen slightly illuminated. The ship's logbook contained recent entries, the last of which was recorded just hours before the Kaz-2 discovery. In the kitchen, the utensils and provisions were tidy and untouched. A fishing line hung from the back of the boat, still attached to a lure shining in the sun. Despite the disturbing normality of the scene, there were some small indications that pointed to a possible problem. One of the sails was torn and flapped in the wind. A life jacket was missing, although the vests were still aboard. But beyond these small details, there was nothing to suggest what happened to Derek, Peter, and James. There was no blood, no signs of struggle, no damage to the boat to indicate a collision or capsize. It was as if the men had vanished into thin air. The Kaz-2 was not a boat in poor condition. It was a vessel in perfect order, floating quietly in calm waters with all systems intact. The fact that the crew had disappeared only made the situation more puzzling. Why had they abandoned ship? Where had they gone? And most puzzling of all, why had they not used any distress signals or emergency equipment on board? Immediately, authorities launched a search and rescue mission, combing the area around CES-2 in search of any trace of the missing person. Planes, helicopters, and boats scoured the waters in an area of kilometers. But the ocean is vast, and the Great Barrier Reef, with its intricate maze of reefs and channels, is one of the most difficult places to track. The days turned into weeks, but the search yielded no results. No corpses, no remains, no answers. The discovery of CES-2, with no trace of its crew, shocked all of Australia. The media was quick to christen it the Australian Mary Celeste, drawing disturbing comparisons to the famous ghost ship discovered in the Atlantic Ocean in the 19th century. Both ships were found in perfect condition, with no trace of their crew. Both left behind a trail of mystery and unanswered questions that still baffle researchers today. For the families of Derek, Peter, and James, the discovery of the CAS-2 was not closure. Instead, it marked a long and painful wait for answers that never came. How could 3 sailors disappear from a stable boat in calm conditions? What happened in the days between their departure and the ship's discovery? And perhaps most chillingly, why did they abandon ship? As the investigators delved into the details, the mystery intensified. The lack of clear evidence meant that each piece of information, or lack thereof, became vital to reconstruct what might have happened. However, each new clue seemed to raise more questions than narrow possibilities. The authorities examined the ship's GPS logs to reconstruct the events that led up to the crew's disappearance. The records revealed that the CAS-2 had moved normally until April 16th, the day after setting sail from the port of Shawhaven. That day, the ship's movements became erratic. Instead of following a straight route, it seemed to sail aimlessly, sometimes circling itself. This strange pattern continued until the ship was found on April 18th. One of the most puzzling clues was the fishing line hanging from a boat. This suggested that at least one of the men had been fishing before disappearing. Could one of them have fallen into the water while trying to reel a fish? If so, why didn't the others throw him a life preserver or use emergency equipment to rescue him? And why were the life vests untouched? The condition of the ship also did not provide many answers. The broken sails seemed to indicate that there was bad weather or a sudden storm. But weather reports from the area indicated that the sea was calm and conditions were benign at the time of the disappearance. The engines still running and the cabin in good condition suggested that, whatever it was that had happened, it had been unexpected and sudden. There were no indications that the men had prepared to abandon ship, which made their absence even more mysterious. The authorities also considered the possibility of a criminal act. Could another vessel have intercepted the crew? Piracy, although infrequent in Australian waters, could not be completely ruled out. However, the ship showed no signs of struggle, and nothing of value seemed missing. The idea of an external threat seemed unlikely, but could not be ruled out. Another disturbing theory was that of a chance accident. The ship's location near the Great Barrier Reef raised the possibility that a giant wave or a sudden gust of wind had swept the crew overboard. The broken sail seemed to support this idea, as it suggested that the ship had encountered more adverse conditions than initially reported. But, again, this raised a question: why didn't the men use life jackets or activate a distress signal? One of the most disturbing theories about what happened to the crew of the CAS-2 suggests that a series of small, unrelated events led to a terrible catastrophe. It is possible that one of the men fell overboard while fishing and, in their desperate attempt to save him, the others were also lost. This chain of events could explain the disturbing calm that reigned on board when the ship was discovered, with the engine running, the clothes neatly folded, and the laptop still open. It was not the result of a single catastrophic event, but rather a slow unfolding of circumstances that left the ship adrift and its crew mysteriously disappeared. Despite exhaustive investigations, no one has been able to find definitive answers. The vast and relentless ocean guards its secrets jealously. The case has also become a disturbing symbol of how even the most experienced sailors can disappear without a trace, leaving only questions behind. The ship now serves as a stark reminder of how quickly the sea can go from serene to deadly. For the families of Derek, Peter, and James, the CAS-2 has become a symbol of their pain and their unanswered questions. The lack of closure is a wound that time cannot heal. The ship itself, forever linked to their memories, is a reminder of how unpredictable and dangerous the ocean can be, even when conditions are calm and the vessel is well-equipped. The CAS-2 has earned a place in maritime history and is often compared to the infamous Mary Celeste. Both stories share a chilling similarity. Intact ships found adrift without a crew on board. While the Mary Celeste was a 19th-century mystery, the CAS-2 is a modern enigma that unfolds in an era of advanced technology and communications. The fact that such a disappearance could occur in 2007 in calm conditions with a well-equipped ship makes it even more disturbing for the affected families. Despite exhaustive searches and investigations, no trace of the men has ever been found. The immensity of the ocean continues to guard its secrets, and, for their loved ones, the lack of closure remains an open wound. The CS2 has become a warning to sailors and adventurers, highlighting the importance of preparation, vigilance, and understanding the unpredictable nature of the sea. Not even the most experienced sailors equipped with the best technology are immune to the dangers of the ocean. The ship, in its pristine but disturbing emptiness, highlights how fragile the line separating safety from disaster can be. Since its discovery, the CAS-2 has captured the public imagination. Documentaries, books, and articles have explored its mystery, offering theories and speculations, but without concrete answers. The story continues to intrigue both maritime historians and mystery lovers, becoming a ghost ship that sails through nautical history. Even in an era of satellite tracking and advanced underwater exploration, the question remains, can modern technology solve the mystery of the CAS-2? Although the ship has been thoroughly examined, the vast waters surrounding the Great Barrier Reef remain largely unexplored. New advances in sonar mapping and autonomous underwater vehicles, AUVs, could provide new data on the area and uncover clues that have remained hidden for more than a decade. In addition, modern data analysis techniques could be used to examine the GPS records and weather data from the time of the disappearance, offering a more detailed picture of the events leading up to April 18, 2007. These tools could reveal a pattern or anomaly that has been overlooked. But even with these advances, the ocean remains a powerful and mysterious force.